Okay, thank you. Recording has begun.
Okay, thanks. I'll call the meeting to order. This is the February 9, 2021 meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission for the Town of Fairfield. The first item on our agenda are bills and communications, the meeting minutes. The first is from January 26, 2021 and January 27, 2020 from our regular meeting as well as our planning session. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve. Move to approve.
Thank you. Motion to approve by Commissioner Francis and seconded by Commissioner Braun. Thank you, guys. Commissioner Francis, any comments or questions?
No, I didn't.
Very good. Commissioner Braun? No. Excellent. I didn't see anything either. Any other commissioners have any comments or questions on the minutes? Yes, Commissioner Brayman. Yep, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, it was just on the January 26th. There was a typographical error in the second zoning regulation amendment on the accessory dwelling units, and there was just a fragment of text at the end of that should be deleted, and then there's a couple of words that should be added to one of the phrases. Let me see.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brayman did email me that correction earlier today, and we looked at it. We have no issue. He's absolutely correct. We need to add voted to table the application of the Affordable Housing Committee for Section 6 and then delete some extraneous text there. So we have the correction as submitted by Commissioner Brayman, and we agreed that that's an easy correction.
Okay.
Yep, that's all I had.
Terrific. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see any other hands. No voices. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Good. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the minutes of January 26 and 27 are adopted unanimously. The next item is new applications for recommendation to public hearing. The first is zoning regulation amendment application of Fairfield University to amend section 5.2.5.4 of the zoning regulations, coverage and floor area related to parking structures.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Jim Went for the record. You may recall that about 1.5 years ago, the commission approved a regulation amendment for Sacred Heart University for their proposed parking structure to allow a certain percentage of the lot area not to be to allow parking structures to be exempt from lot coverage and floor area requirements up to a certain percentage of the lot area, which was approved to facilitate Sacred Heart's construction of a parking structure. Fairfield is looking to add themselves or their zone. Right now, that allowance is limited to the R3 zone for university use. The Fairfield University is looking to extend that to their zone for an exception of their parking structure from those requirements. It is an amendment to the regs. It does require a public hearing.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Can I have a motion? Okay, so move to public hearing by Commissioner Noonan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Any comments or questions? A public hearing on this is required. Commissioner Francis.
How close is the university to capacity that it needs this amendment?
I don't know the answer to that sitting here now, but I'm sure that they will provide us the answer to that during their presentation of this matter hearing.
And also, could they discuss with the neighbors on College Park possibly opening the back gate after large event a few times a year, after large events at either the Quick Center or the athletic gymnasium, for 20 minutes after those events to ease the flow of parking, as they've gone above and beyond over the years to accommodate those neighbors. And it's been a couple of decades. So I wonder if they could ask for a little reciprocity to make the flow out of the campus easier.
Well, that would be a matter between the parties that are subject to that agreement and really wouldn't be outside the scope of that particular application. But
No, but I'm inquiring if he could ask.
we can convey that
All right,
message to the university, certainly.
thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this one? This is a simple vote to move the application to public hearing. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Very good. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Let's move to public hearing unanimously. Thank you. So the next item we have is old business. The first is our zoning regulation amendment. The application of the Affordable Housing Committee to amend Section 6 of the zoning regulations regarding accessory dwelling units.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to go through the entirety of the report. We discussed this at length at our meeting on the 27th. I think we were fairly close to certain elements of agreement, and there were only a couple of items left to discuss. I don't know if you want me to go through each individual section or the sections in order, however you want to proceed at this point.
Sure, I appreciate that. I mean, I think maybe we could just do a quick summary of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 areas that we discussed, and I think maybe, and I can do it, a simple recap of sort of where things wound up. I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on the summary. We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, so basically the proposed section 6.3.2 is proposing to eliminate the minimum floor area for an apartment. Right now at 450 feet, the premises is questionable legally whether we can require a minimum square footage, so they're proposing to eliminate it. There was some, the proposal is to keep the maximum 40% of the floor area of the original existing residence, and there was some consensus to raise the proposed 1,000 square foot cap to 1,500 feet. So it would be 1,500 feet or 40%, whichever is less.
Mm-hmm.
Section 6.3.3, the applicant is proposing to eliminate the language that prohibits additions on the property, but maintain the language that the existing residents have been in existence for a minimum of 5 years. 6.3.4, there's some elimination of language, again, relevant to allowing additions, but allowing access to the accessory apartment on the front facade, provided that it's separated, the front doors are separated by at least 10 feet. In the applicant's proposed language was, and is of a different appearance. There was some concern about that being fairly subjective. And while still kind of subjective, we did propose in a draft that was distributed to change that to maintaining the appearance of a single-family dwelling. That's the intent, I believe, the regulation, that to allow at least a 10-foot separation between the two doors and to maintain the appearance of a single-family dwelling is language that we had proposed. In 6.3.6, there's language that is proposing that the house or accessory apartment can be rented for a period of not less than 30 days. I think from our last discussion, there was consensus that that could be increased to 60 days. And lastly, section 3.6.10, there was some criteria that outlines the conditions for which a unit may qualify as affordable housing. And we've got a couple of minor edits to that language that I think was pretty much agreed upon. And lastly, in section 6.3.11, the proposal is to allow in the AAA zone, a freestanding accessory structure may be constructed or converted in the language that was proposed to be inserted into the proposal, consistent with the language from the earlier section, is to cap that apartment size at 40% of the area of the main dwelling or 1,500 square feet, whichever is less. Those are the areas that had the most, were the items of discussion at our planning meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. And, what we don't have presently is, a further markup, right? And this is for the benefit of the commissioners, a further markup following our planning session where we discussed all of that. But Mr. Wen, I appreciate that summary of sort of where things wound up. So with that, I'd entertain a motion. I think that the way that should be styled is, if we're going to consider revising the regulations, proposed by the applicant a little bit, it's, move to approve with the following edits. I think, would be a good way to present it. So, Commissioner Francis,
I'll move to approve it, as I did a couple of meetings ago.
very good. Do you want to increase the area size, for example, in 6.3.2?
Oh, right. I thought you would wait a minute for that. Yes.
So it
I
would
had a
be,
few,
go ahead.
excuse me?
Do you want me to recite what I think?
No, I noted them as Jim went through them.
Okay,
Yeah, when we talked about it a month ago, I had a few concerns, but I thank the commission for coming together, and I'm very satisfied. And I think this should really help the seniors, the young people, and I hope it works well. But it seems to preserve, I was particularly concerned with preserving the neighborhood, the look of the single-family home, the character of the
right. If I could
neighborhood.
just, I'm sorry, Commissioner Francis, just interrupt you. Could we get to your amendments? Could we understand what amendments to the applicant's proposal you'd like for us to consider
Sure.
as part of your motion?
6.32, 1,500 square feet.
Okay,
6.33, and maintain the appearance of a single-family dwelling.
okay. I
That
think
would-
that's 6.3.4, yes?
Correct.
Maintain the appearance of
Yes,
single-family dwelling, that's 6.3.4, yes?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Okay, keep going.
6.3.6, 60 consecutive days.
Okay, go ahead.
And I didn't note which two. Jim said there were a couple more in 6.3.11.
Yeah, the adding a limit to a detached apartment, the same as an attached, 40% of the area of the main dwelling or 1,500 square feet, whichever is less.
Yes.
Okay, that's 6.3.11. And I think that there was also a recommendation to consensus on 6.3.10, which apart from amending the numbers, amends, quote, to be used for, amended to may qualify as, and also amend subject to the design criteria of, to add that language in front of the section 830G in that section.
Yeah, I don't have that version of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes,
Okay, so that one as well. Okay.
yes,
I think that's all of the items on consensus. That's the limit of your motion, Commissioner Francis?
yes.
Okay, can I have a second? Commissioner Levy, you had your hand up. You have a second that motion?
We can't hear
You're on
you.
mute, sorry.
I'd second, but I'd point out that I'm not sure we addressed the 5-year issue.
Well, the five-
Under
yeah.
6.3.
So the 6.3.3, the 5-year is there's not been it's not part of the motion to revise what the applicant has proposed. And the applicant has proposed to maintain the 5-year restriction, but amend, excuse me, sorry. But has eliminated the addition so that you can be done as addition.
Mhm. Okay. So I'm not sure whether I want to second with a friendly amendment, or request for a friendly amendment to also consider whether or not to eliminate the 5-year requirement before an addition can be added as an accessory use.
Sure. So that's up to you, right? I mean, my personal view is that I'm supporting 6.3.3 in the manner that's been proposed by the applicant. I think that the 5-year requirement should be maintained, at least in this revision. But and I think that there was I think there were comments and arguments on both sides of that equation when we last met. But you're free, obviously, to support it or not, in any way you'd like.
I think it's more of a question to the chair as to procedurally how best to present that issue.
Well, I mean, given my position, I think it'd be best to have a second on the motion and see whether that carries. And if there's a majority of the commissioners that would rather, take up the issue of further amending it to eliminate the 5-year, then, they can voice their concerns.
Mm-hmm.
But, we should get this motion either on the table or not is where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
So if you want a friendly amendment and Commissioner Francis can decide whether she wants to, accept that or not, fine. Otherwise, if there's another commissioner that wants to second Commissioner Francis's motion, Commissioner Braun, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a second now. Now it's up for discussion before we vote. So, Commissioner Francis, now the floor is yours. Then I'll go to Commissioner Braun, and then I'll turn it over to other commissioners to make their argument.
Well, I pretty much said what I had to about our changes that we've all agreed on. The 5 years, I can see both sides of it. I think I favor keeping it there for a while, out of respect to our predecessors, and I'm sure they had reasons for it, that they just don't want new construction with rentable spaces. It's probably a positive idea to keep it, would be my opinion.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And I do know you did say your comments there before we kind of got to this point. Yeah, Commissioner Braun.
So the only things we're talking about are changes to the original application, which came to us a few months ago. So my point about, and then so we're changing it from 30 to 60 days for the rental time period, which is a change, but the facade we're not changing because the way it's been proposed, the door has to be separated by 10 feet and have a different appearance than the primary entrance. So I want that, so we don't have to modify what they have proposed, right?
That's correct, except that
Okay.
as part of the motion is that it needs to be separated by 10 feet and should maintain the appearance of a single-family dwelling. That's the language that's proposed to be inserted.
It's not going to say that the door will be of a different appearance, the accessory door?
That is proposed to be struck. In favor of it should be separated by at least 10 feet, and it should maintain the appearance of a single-family dwelling.
That's just as subjective as having a different appearance. I don't remember why we changed that verbiage. Maybe somebody can help me there.
Well, there was a lot of discussion of that it had to be on the side or the rear. And people felt, well, that might be a little restrictive. They might have to go to ZBA for a waiver. So we changed it to that instead as a compromise, if I recall.
Okay, thank,
I mean, I think that anything that we try to articulate here is by necessity going to be somewhat subjective. My personal view is that separating the entrances by 10 feet and including the requirement that it maintain an appearance of a single family dwelling, serves the purpose. I think you know it when you see it, and I think that staff can help folks navigate that. These all have to be, approved, right? You come in with the plans and over the counter, and you're going to be having these reviewed and such. So, I mean, my view is that it does the job. Okay. Commissioners, Commissioner Levy, anything? Yes. I'm sorry, you're on mute again.
Thank you. Sort of in the situation of like with budgets, whether or not there's such thing as a line item budget. I mean, frankly, the proposed changes as presented in the amendment, I do agree with them. And basically support all of these things to provide for additional options for housing to meet the needs of, Fairfield in general, whether it be for in-law apartments, individuals, when it's no longer needed for in-laws, for it then to be continued as a use for, what the market will dictate in terms of perhaps single individuals using the property, which is why what I'd first like to do is suggest a friendly amendment, which might or might not be entertained, but to address this issue of whether or not the 5-year restriction on should be maintained, or whether that should be eliminated as part of our comprehensive review of these regulations. So I would like to, and I think there's a diversity of view. I think we've gone both ways. If a friendly amendment would be allowed just for purposes of discussing it and addressing that issue alone, if it's defeated, then we approve what's left. If it's approved, then we can add that to it. But basically address that so that we're not having to vote against the entire thing one way or the other. So
Yeah. No,
yeah, I guess my request is for a friendly amendment to address that issue.
Sure. And so that, thank you. So Commissioner Francis, that's a question to you then. Are you,
That would be fine.
you want to amend the motion to include eliminating the 5-year rule in the section 6.3.3?
If people, Commissioner Levy gave me the impression we're going to discuss it and vote on it or not.
Sure. If you want to add it for discussion, that's fine. Commissioner Braun, do you agree with that? Okay, thank you. So now the motion's been amended to include that additionally. Commissioner Brayman, you had your hand up?
Yes, I agree with the original changes suggested by Commissioners Francis and Braun. And I also agree with the additional change suggested by Commissioner Levy. We've gone back and forth on the 5 years, and I think that it's important to note that the applicant has a table of 6 different municipalities in Connecticut, of which Fairfield is the only one that has an age requirement for the structure. So that's significant. I don't think those communities have had adverse reactions to the accessory dwelling units in their communities that we know of, that we've heard of, because of not having this requirement that the structure be 5 years old. I think that the whole purpose of us engaging in this lengthy and robust debate that we've had about ADUs is to try to encourage people to build more of them, to diversify the housing stock in our town. And I think that eliminating the 5-year requirement would do that in a way that would not open up the floodgates to multiple dwellings all over town. I think that it would be a measured and appropriate step for us to take in terms of appropriately incentivizing the creation of accessory dwelling units.
Okay, thanks. I certainly have some comments on this, as I've expressed before. I'll wait. Commissioner Noonan?
Well, Commissioner Wagner, Chairman Wagner, you had said you were in support of the 5 years. My initial reaction was to delete the provision. So I would be interested to hear what you have to say before I say just quickly my point.
Okay. So, yeah, I am not in favor of eliminating the 5-year rule, and I recognize that we might be, one of a community that's different from others. I think it is significant that single-family homes would be built in the future with this sort of ready-made apartment that would sort of de facto create a rental unit that is not restricted in any way by, for example, to be affordable or for age, whether it's elderly parents or the like. It may need to be a long-term rental, but given this change in the regulations, I don't understand why any new construction wouldn't have this accessory apartment built in. And while we want to encourage the creation of those for these purposes, with which I wholeheartedly agree, I think that if we are to go down this road, then we ought to be instituting some requirements that these units serve the purposes that we intend. And so if we're going to eliminate the 5-year rule and we allow new construction to include an apartment in a single family home, then I think we should also require that it be designated as an affordable unit, and that it should be required. That it should be required to be an affordable unit. I would like it to, in the same vein, to require that it be deed restricted so that we get credit for it under 830G. That makes the most sense to me as planners and for the community, that if we are allowing new construction to include an apartment that's available for rental, that it should be earmarked affordable to expand our housing stock in the manner that we are intending by amending these regulations. So I am either in favor of taking this, in my view, sort of one step at a time and agreeing to all of these other things that we're talking about, which frankly are pretty significant, including in the AAA zone being, having, additional buildings being built for standalone apartments and the like, and not acting on this 5-year, removing the 5-year rule. Or if we are really inclined to do that, then let's make it meaningful, and let's attach to that, if it's within 5 years, that it should be deed restricted, designated affordable, and counts under 830G. Commissioner Noonan?
Thank you. Again, my initial reaction, I don't think it's really changed too much, is I don't like the idea of telling people, restricting people's ability to use their property as they see fit, which is why even with new construction or the 5 years being pretty arbitrary in itself, it essentially essentially stops a person from using their property as they feel the need to. And understanding your point now, Mr. Chair, I understand where you're coming from. These are going to be accessory units. We're not going to be turning the potential soon-to-be potential landlords into professional landlords. These are going to be people that they're going to be living in their own house with. And I think asking or restricting it further that it be affordable units only for new construction, maybe taking these potential landlords into a more professional landlord area than I think they need to be at this point. So I think getting our affordable units is going to be more towards developments and not for accessory units, which these are probably more for young adults or in-laws or things like that, or elderly parents. That's probably more intended for these accessory units, or maybe just getting some subsequent income for to be able to subsidize themselves in Fairfield. Going the extra distance for affordable units for an accessory unit seems to be, in my view, going maybe a step too far. Again, I would either prefer taking out the 5-year restriction, or if it's really a concern about it being new construction, maybe reducing 5 years down to 2 or even 1, with the chance that if something were to come up, that they can make the change. But my initial reaction is following with Commissioner Levy with removing the provision.
Okay. So, and let me just respond quickly to that, and then I'll pass it back over to Commissioner Levy, and then Commissioner Braun, you had your hand up. So you said overly restricting their, otherwise proper use of their land. Well, they purchased a home in a single family zone, and they're entitled to use that land for a single family home. What we are doing now is creating, if we eliminate the 5-year rule, we are creating the opportunity to build and develop in the first instance a multi-family home anywhere in the single family zone. It's an apartment building. It's not restricted as to who it's rented to. I don't believe the homeowners they're not living in the same space with the folks that live in these accessory dwelling units necessarily. You could, right? It's connected. You could leave the door open. Mom and dad could come and just use that space as their ancillary to the home. But it's also very easy to close that door. You have your external egress, entry doorway. It's got a kitchenette. It's got, it can be an apartment, 1,500 square feet. I mean, in certain circumstances, right? In some instances, these are going to be relatively large, could be. And so, I'm trying to manage the growth, if you will, and not get us into some unintended consequences. We want to be progressive and move this forward, and we are significantly. And I appreciate the alternative that you suggested by maybe reducing the number of years. And I would be amenable to that, frankly, because I think it would avoid the circumstance that I'm talking about, right? In a better way. So, Commissioner Levy, you're on mute again.
Must have a mental block on that tonight. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I well appreciate your concerns. And my sense is, looking at the proposal before us, it's replete with references to the need, how ADUs serve the need for diverse housing opportunities, and that's the focus of this proposal: how to provide additional housing, whether it be for in-laws, for the elderly, for the single, individuals in our town, and how ADUs, if you look through their proposal, how ADUs serve these purposes in providing additional options and diverse housing stock. I think in terms of, whether or not all new construction would now have an accessory apartment, I think the market would dictate to the contrary. Even assuming a minimum of $200 a square foot and you've got a foundation for a freestanding structure, you'd be talking $300,000 additional out of the builder's pocket. And I don't know too many builders who on spec are going to put in an additional $300,000 to put in an accessory unit when most people are not going to want to be landlords. It's hell if you've ever represented them. Most people do not like it. And I think the market would actually militate against it. And instead, you're going to see, as probably the other towns who have these regulations, that if an accessory unit is part of new construction, it's going to be because somebody specifically wants a spot for mom and dad, you know, or to be able to have somebody, maybe even have the nanny live there separate and apart from the main house. It would serve those purposes. And then, of course, once mom and dad are gone, what do you do with it? Well, then it might be where one of our high school teachers is going to live. So I'm not worried about it becoming the basis for turning AAA zones into multifamily or multi-apartment complexes. And for that reason, I also would not link it in any way to issues of either age, because it may serve the elderly who clearly are in need in housing in this town, nor do I want to restrict it so that the younger people who want to move back into town couldn't avail themselves of living in an ADU, nor do I want to deed restrict it because our purpose here is to provide diversity of housing. Providing affordable housing is a goal of ours, but I don't think mixing those two goals in this platform is appropriate. I think we should focus on what the applicant has put before us, which is to provide another means of having diverse housing. I don't see any reason why I would not even want a one-year restriction, because then if somebody wants to build a house, new construction with a room for mom and dad, let them do it. Why should, they have to wait a year to do it? That doesn't make sense to me. I don't think there are going to be many of these. I think the experience in other towns probably bears it out. And I think it's entirely consistent. In fact, further in support of what's before us in terms of the need of ADUs and diverse housing. So on that basis, I would eliminate the 5 years. I would not impose any conditions on either age or economic eligibility, and just leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun, you were next with you.
So I'm reading the original application. The 5 years, that relates to any ADU, doesn't it? Not just the freestanding ones in the AAA zone?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a requirement.
Okay. So basically, we're going beyond, for the AAA standalone, we're going beyond what the requested reg says. They said 1,000 square feet, we're saying 1,500, that's quite large. And if we also go beyond it by saying we don't need to have the building already existing for 5 years, and we're going to become much more lenient and say you could do it at construction, then I think we should get something out of it. The whole purpose of this regulation is for affordable housing. And I think we should get some credit for it. I think we learned last time from Mark or Jim that this does add to the denominator when we have a freestanding unit, or maybe any ADU. If it adds to the denominator, we need to add something to the numerator. So this, I think, by taking away the 5-year requirement, it could incentivize having more of these freestanding units. But having the deed restriction gives us something for that. So I would be in favor of what Chairman Wagner was saying.
Okay. Others? Commissioner Brandon?
I agree with the thoughtful comments of Commissioner Levy. I think that if we have a 5-year or other requirement for how long the structure,
Nope, I'm sorry, you just ticked on mute for some reason.
sorry, I believe if we had a restriction on how long the structure has to be in existence, the only people that it's going to directly affect are going to be the ones who would like to build a new home in Fairfield with space for an in-law apartment or for younger relatives or for any of the other laudable purposes for which we want ADUs. And they're going to say, well, we can't build it because we just have to build, we would have to build a home without that accessory dwelling unit and then wait 5 years or wait, 3 years. I think that if you're a builder who's building spec homes or flipping homes, you're not going to narrow your market unilaterally so much to say, well, I'm only building this home for somebody who wants an in-law apartment or somebody who wants a renter in their building, and that those are going to be the only people that I'm going to be able to market this building to, that I'm building on spec or flipping. So I think that on balance, although this is a question worthy of debate, how far should we go at this time in terms of making progress? I think that the balance tips in favor of getting rid of the 5-year requirement and letting people do more with their own property.
Okay, so first, if somebody's building a new home and they want to build space for their elderly parents, they can do so. It's just not a separate, apartment, accessory dwelling unit as defined, okay? If somebody wants to create space for their grown, from home after college, they can do so in a new construction. All right, there's nothing that prevents that. It's just not a separate dwelling unit that is capable of being rented like this, a second space, and we don't have any evidence of the kind that you and Commissioner Brayman and Commissioner Levy are citing with respect to market forces and what builders would or would not do, or where are we drawing those conclusions from? I would feel much more comfortable if we actually had some builders or the homeowners, home builders association, or some other testimony of folks that say, no, actually even if you pass this, we wouldn't build new construction with these units unless it was specifically for a customer that was, wanting to build a unit that way. So I just, without that kind of credible evidence to rely on, I would urge us not to go this extra step. We've taken substantial steps in very progressive directions, and I just I would urge us not to do it. Either condition that allowance on compliance with section 6.3.10 as an affordable unit, or maybe reduce the number from 5 to 3 years, something like that, to accommodate what I'm talking about. And I just that's my thoughts. Others? Commissioner Levy?
I'll keep it very brief. Just addressing the issue of whether you can or cannot do it when you're doing new construction. Again, if you're building a new house, but you want to have your in-laws or your younger relative with you, if you were to build it and want to maintain also their independence and having a separate, shall we say, life, you're not going to want to build a residence with 2 separate kitchens within it, all as part of a single residence. And that's where the accessory unit comes in, where you can have a separate entrance, a separate kitchen, without it being part of the main residence, and it serves that purpose. And I think in terms of whether or not we need testimony or evidence from builders. I think the economics of it speaks for itself. And I for one, just sort of common sense tells me that this is not one where I have to worry about floodgates. I think the purpose is to provide diversity of housing to serve a need that exists, particularly for the elderly. And it is something that stands separate and apart and we should not try and tie it in with either affordable housing or any other issues. And just that's it. Thanks.
Very good. So, I at the end of this debate, I'm not seeing too many other hands, and we kind of need to move on. Would ask the the owners of the motion, Commissioner Francis and Commissioner Braun, whether they would like their motion to include this or not, right? So when it was first approached by Commissioner Levy as a friendly amendment, Commissioner Francis, you agreed to to adopt this into your motion for purposes of discussion. And we've now had that, right? So I'm asking you as a fellow commissioner for a friendly amendment, which is to remove this from your motion, which you're entitled to do. If you don't want to keep it and move it to a vote, then that's your prerogative as well. So what do you say?
I personally favor 5 years. I could live with 3. So yes, I will remove it.
Okay, Commissioner Braun?
I agree with you and Commissioner Francis. I feel we're already going, if we're going to go beyond what the applicant is requesting, we should put a condition on it. Although I would be amenable to reducing it from 5 years to 3 years.
So Commissioner Braun, do you accept Commissioner Francis, just, she further amended her motion, and you agree as a seconder?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Levy?
I'd like to suggest another friendly amendment that we vote separately on the 5-year issue and see how the commission feels on that.
Okay. I'm not quite sure how.
Because otherwise we're left with either voting yea or nay.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, which quite frankly was the reason why I wanted to make the request to see whether we could get that, because I do support, as I think hopefully I've made clear, the overwhelming number of amendments, an overwhelming number of amendments. It's just this one, and I think that others are in the same boat. So yeah, I think that we can. Mr. Wendt, how can I parse this? We have the motion on the table to.
I believe we vote on the amendment first and then the motion as amended.
Okay, Mr. Wendt, what do we think about that?
No, I concur. Right now, the way the original motion was made was to keep the 5-year provision. It was later amended for the purpose of discussion, and it was agreed to amend that. So if you want to vote separately, you could have the, and then there was, I got a little confused because that amendment seemed to be withdrawn. So as it stands, in my view, the motion does not include, the motion includes keeping the 5-year provision. If there's an amendment to change that, you could vote on that separately, and then you're back to the original motion.
Okay, so we would vote first on whether to further amend 6.3.3 in the 5-year rule.
Correct.
Okay. And so then that's a sub motion, I guess. So Commissioner Levy.
That makes sense to me.
That makes sense to you, Commissioner Braven? Okay, very good. So then, Commissioner Levy, would you like to make a sub motion?
I guess a sub motion or amendment that we vote separately on the 5-year provision.
Okay, straight up, just simply deleting that from the 6.3.3?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second for that? Commissioner Noonan? Very good. Seconded? All right. Commissioner Braman? This sub motion's up for discussion now until we vote. Go ahead, Commissioner Braman. You're frozen, I think. You're now muted.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing people.
So did you have your hand up to discuss the sub motion that's on the table? Yeah, I think you're frozen again.
I have to log out and log back in.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. While he's doing that, and I know we will wait for him, do others have any further discussion on this item? No. Okay. So we'll hear what he has to say. We'll take a vote on this and then we'll move forward.
I've said more than enough.
Well, we have a chock full agenda this evening. And it's kind of, this is kind of been hanging around for a little while now. And I'm glad we're finally, to the point where we've had some really detailed discussions. I think we're all well versed on all of the subjects. I think we've laid the record for all of the findings we need to make, right, Mr. Wendt? That it's time and experience dictate the need for the amendment, and consistent with the plan of conservation and development, and all of those other criteria.
Correct. I think that's the foundation for that has already been well made.
Good. Commissioner Brayman, are we back in the room? No, unfortunately, it's a good question.
I do not see him yet, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Commissioner Gordon, did you have a procedural question, right? I just saw that. Mr. Wendt, can alternates participate in this discussion if they're not on the voting team?
No, if they're not seated for deliberations, the alternate should not be contributing to the discussion during the vote, Mr. Chairman.
So, sorry.
But I also wanted to just clarify that if this were the first night of public hearing,
Yeah.
that alternates can participate in discussion. So on a first night of a public hearing, by all means, any of the alternates can ask clarifying questions.
Yep, and participate in that public, in all aspects of the public hearing, correct? Did you mean to limit that to just the first night, or?
No, to any portion
No,
of the public
sorry.
hearing. It's
Yeah.
just that once you're sitting in deliberative session, the whoever the members are that are voting are those that are not seated are unfortunately limited as part of the discussion, and there's actually been case law on that.
Yeah. Good.
I see Mr. Brayman on the participant list by name, but I don't see him yet.
I don't either.
Hello, this is Commissioner Brayman.
Here we are.
Commissioner Brayman, I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties.
Okay, well, we do hear you now, and I'm glad you came back in. So, I believe you had your hand up for comment on this sub motion. Is that right?
Yes, I didn't know whether there was a second or not for the motion.
Yeah, got it. There is a second. The motion's been made by Commissioner Levy. It's seconded by Commissioner Noonan. And on the table is whether we should amend the applicant's proposal in 6.3.3 to eliminate the 5-year rule.
Very good. Apologies for the.
No worries. I think now we're ready to vote on this one. Okay, so all in favor, and Commissioner Brayman, you need to verbalize. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have Brayman, Noonan, Levy, Corcoran in favor. All those against? Aye. We have Wagner, Francis, and Braun against, and so that motion carries. So now that's incorporated into how does that work? I mean, that's so
So,
by
so
vote of
if I may, Mr. Chairman, by that vote was a vote to agree to include in the original motion to eliminate the 5-year provision in section 6.3.3.
All right, so it's back in. All right. So what now the motion on the table includes all of the amendments that were originally recited and the elimination of the 5-year rule.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Hearing none. Commissioner Brayman, you voted affirmatively, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Any abstentions? Hearing none. So the motion carries unanimously. The amended regulations are approved unanimously with all of the further changes that we recited. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate all the work on this. And thank you to the Affordable Housing Committee and all of the other folks who spent so much time and effort, getting this to where it is today. It's been years in the making. So thanks. Okay. Mr. Wendt, we're done with that?
We are.
Very good. So, next item is, I'll call the next three together. It's old business 3B, Boyce, C. Charles, D. David, 50 zoning regulation amendment, application of Primrose Development LLC to amend section 10.0 of the zoning regulations for the design residence district, 5545 Park Avenue, zone change application of Primrose Development LLC to establish a design residence district on land presently zoned R3. 5545 Park Avenue, special permit application of Primrose Development LLC, change to the construction of an 80-unit residential development. I called them all together. We don't have to vote on all of them together. In fact, I would recommend that we not. But for discussion purposes, let's get this started. Mr. Wendt?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll briefly recap all three, and then you can discuss. So here, with respect to the regulation amendment, the applicant is seeking an amendment to the design district regulations to allow a greater density for parcels in the R3 zone that have a minimum of 2 acres and are within 150 feet of a Merritt Parkway interchange. The proposed density is 50 bedrooms per acre with a unit cap of 90 units with no units containing more than 2 bedrooms. The percentage of required below market rate units is proposed to be increased from what our regulations currently require at 10% to 15%. So a 15% affordability is proposed. Other proposed design requirements to be amended include the ability of all units to be in a single building, increase the allowable height from 40 feet to 50 feet, increase permitted lot coverage and floor area from 20 and 50% respectively of lot size to 50 and 100%, and proposed parking standard of 1.5 spaces per unit plus an additional 10% of the total number of units for visitors. The applicant urges the commission to apply the same density standards found in the Commerce Drive area TOD regulations to certain other areas surrounding other major traffic locations, particularly the Merritt Parkway, where high-density multifamily housing would be in character with and not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood. The applicant further argues that this proposal will achieve POCD goals of reducing through vehicular traffic by placing high-density housing near major employers, Greater Bridgeport Transit Service, and in close proximity to the Parkway to reduce local road trips. The standard for consideration for an amendment are well familiar to you. You just recited them for the most part. Number one is the proposal consistent with the plan of conservation development? Does time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed change? 3, has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? 5, does the proposed amendment promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community and accomplish the transition in character between unlike character, of areas between unlike character? And 6, would the proposed amendment permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? With respect to the zone change element, in addition to the regulation amendment, the applicant seeks to establish a design residence district overlay on this parcel. This site is 2.4 acres in size and is bounded by Park Avenue on the east, Notre Dame High School property on the south and west, and the Merritt Parkway to the north. The site frontage is located at an existing traffic signal. Similar considerations for zone change are similar to what I just quoted. Is the proposal consistent with the POCD? Does time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the change? Have circumstances in the neighborhood changed substantially to warrant the requested zone change? Has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health and welfare of the town? With respect to the special permit, again, this special permit application proposes an 80-unit residential building. Of the 80 units, 50 are one-bedroom units, 30 are two-bedroom, and 30 two-bedroom units. 12 of the units would be restricted at below market rate. A total of 158 parking spaces are proposed, and almost 2 per unit. The proposed building is 4 occupied floors at street level with parking under. As you know, this site slopes rather dramatically from the street towards the back. So as you progress into the site, parking levels are proposed underneath the building along that slope with 4 occupied stories above. Existing Park Avenue traffic counts range from 1,183 vehicles and 799 vehicles during the morning and afternoon peak hours presently. The proposal is expected to add 29 peak morning trips and 36 peak afternoon trips. Should the commission approve this application, the applicant has agreed to extend the proposed sidewalk beyond the site frontage southerly along Park Avenue, along the Notre Dame High School frontage to connect to the existing sidewalk at Sacred Heart University. The considerations for a special permit are found in section 25.7.7 as the development shown on the site plan and architectural plans of such character is to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, and to protect property values in the neighborhood, preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and avoid undue traffic congestion. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks very much. Our time here is also, what's the timing on this?
Your deadline to vote?
Yep.
Would be the 18th of March.
18th of March. Okay, good. Very good. Appreciate the recap there. So can I have a motion on any or all of these? Are we ready to talk about these? Commissioner Noonan, you had tabled this the last time to give yourself some more time. I know that you've been ill over the last little bit, and I'm glad to see you and glad you're feeling better, but
Thank you.
might have impacted your ability to move this forward.
I'm happy to table if other people feel the need. I am also willing to make a motion to deny the regulation amendment.
Okay, well, I can certainly do that. If you'd like to make a motion to deny the regulation amendment? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a second? No one. Second by Commissioner Levy. Thank you, Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Noonan?
Thank you. Ultimately, the applicant is asking us to, what in my, practically speaking, asking us to take our TOD density standards and apply it to this area, which is simply just close to the Merritt Parkway. And I'm just not in favor of the idea of taking these type of our TOD density standards away from the railroads and applying them to the Merritt Parkway or maybe 95 or any other major thoroughway roadway in the area. I just cannot get over that initial hurdle and to follow them down the path that they would like. In that respect, Give me 1 second, please. In that respect, I just don't believe that the time and experience and responsible planning indicates the need for this proposal, or has it been demonstrated that this proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town. I appreciate where they're coming from and what the project they want to put in that area, and I won't disagree with what they said, the benefits of them and why they're doing it. The applicant and his attorney knows this well, and I thought was a very responsible application in what they were seeking. But the initial hurdle of applying this TOD standards to the reasons for having TOD density near railways, applying that to simply because it's near a highway, I just cannot get over that initial hurdle. In that respect, I would disfavor the application, the regulation amendment for that reason.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Levy, anything to add?
I'm truly torn on this application, and for a number of reasons. I think it's a unique parcel. It's 2.4 acres. It's opposite a medical center. It's off of Park Avenue. It's in an R3 zone, but it's not property that would lend itself to either 1, 2, or even 3 separate residences. But it's a large piece of property, and it's going to be developed at some point. And without prejudging anything that might come down the road, I fully expect at some point in the future that if this does not go forward, then there will be an 830G application, and we'll deal with that on its merits at that time. But I think on balance, the neighbors, with the exception of maybe to be against this proposal, it is trying to shoehorn a very large development into, okay. I think it's trying to shoehorn a very large development into an R3 zone. And I can see the reasons why that would be development. And I think the developer has tried to be sensitive to some of the neighbors' concerns. But ultimately, I think it's too much in this zone. I do not think it's consistent with our plan of conservation and development. But I say that in, I think, awareness of what may be coming down the pike, but I can only deal with this application right now.
Yeah. Thank you for those comments. I think Commissioner Noonan, you articulated the basis for your motion really well, and Commissioner Levy, you just summed up those considerations really well. You know, first of all, this is the zoning regulation amendment that we have to consider first, right? So even if we were thinking about, you know, in the context of the overall, right? I mean, if we, so that we're all on the same page, if we deny the zoning regulation amendment, then the application for the special exception on its merits, that failed, that has to fail because it will be inconsistent with our regulations, right? So Mr. Went, just confirm me for the commission on that, correct?
That is correct. In the absence of the regulation amendment, the special permit would not comply.
Right. So we should all understand, right, that this first motion on this first item is significant for that reason and in that respect. I think that the only reason that we're entertaining this is because of the veiled or otherwise threat of what they, you know, tell us they will do if we don't. And you know, in that case, I think I say, please file your application, because if we're going to enable this kind of density, then we should reap the benefit of it. The town should, the residents and others should, with affordable components that are not being offered with this application. And you know, frankly, I think I would welcome that. It really is trying to, under our current frame of our regulations and our plan of conservation and development, and so it is not, it's too much on too small a lot in a residential zone. You know, I am leaning in favor of the motion to deny the regulation amendment for all those reasons, and appreciate both of you articulating yourselves. Other members of the commission? Commissioner Braun and then Commissioner Brayman.
I think it basically fails on all the criteria. I don't think it's consistent with the plan of conservation and development. I don't think it's responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions. There's no need for this change. It would not serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town. In fact, I drove by it. I didn't realize this from the plans. It's hard to, I guess you could kind of see it. The entryway would be almost directly across from the either exit or entry to the Merit. That's just too much right there. Combined with the expansion of Sacred Heart and everything else going on, I think it's dangerous right there. I listened to what the neighbors say about what's happening right now. Also driving by, I think this would decimate that parcel of land, which is open space right now. And it is used as habitat for animals. I do appreciate they did provide a map called the Natural Diversity Database. It shows areas of that whole, actually most of Fairfield. There are listed species in the federal and state database for either species of special concern or endangered or threatened species. It doesn't really say which, but in the vicinity, there are some all along, sort of dotted along all the Merritt Parkway at the upper end of Blackrock Turnpike and the upper end of Park Avenue and the upper end of Sport Hill Road near the Merritt Parkway. And I would like to see that explored before we consider any applications which would pretty much pave over an entire parcel of land without knowing what devastation it could be wreaking on habitat or other environmental issues. The other thing is there's significant cuts that was noted in the wetlands application. I couldn't find the drainage report for this. I don't know if it was provided or not. I don't know if there's blasting or not. I know we have blasting regs. It's under the fire marshal's jurisdiction, I guess. But I still am concerned that without a subsurface geological survey showing what the result could be of these significant cuts into the land and or blasting, I don't know what happens to the flow of water underneath. And I think this is a fragile area, and it is in the vicinity of the north end of Lake Mohegan and the Cascade area and Mill River. Well, maybe not Mill River so much, but other rivers. So I think I'd like to have a whole lot more of an environmental discussion before I would agree on paving over an entire parcel of what appears mostly to be open space. It's extremely steeply sloped, and I don't think there's been enough discussion or information about it for me to even consider approving it. And that goes along with the our plan of conservation and development. It is in the general welfare of our community to protect our environment, and I don't think this does. And it also would clearly harm property values of anybody living nearby.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Brayman.
Thank you. Obviously, there's certain types of zoning applications where we have very limited or constrained discretion. When we're asked to amend our regulations, we have very broad discretion. Take into account all the different factors and precedent and what is best for the town. The density that we're being asked to amend our regulations to accommodate at this site is generally not available except in the TOD and other parts of town that this is not. the application does have certain things to commend it, and obviously was the product of some thoughtful deliberations and trying to give us something that we could potentially approve. And there should be a path for developers to work with the Planning and Zoning Commission without the need to make an 8-30G application to increase density, allow for some affordable units, and so forth. This, to me, based on everything that I've heard from other commissioners and from the public, this is not quite that application. And I don't know that I can support amending our regulations to allow this type of density at this particular site. The site is challenging. The site is ripe for some type of development other than, one or two single family homes, as Commissioner Levy noted. But I don't know that I can support the regulation amendment as proposed.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Corcoran.
I wanted to support the chairman's note that we're not getting any points for this for affordable housing. And it seems if we were going to make all these adjustments, we should get something for it. So on that basis, I don't support this.
Okay. I think, and my point is we would be getting more under 830G. Just to be clear, right? I don't want there to be any misconceptions. Mr. Wendt, I think the proposal was to have 15% affordable units, and just to confirm so that everybody's on the same page, whether those would be deed restricted and for which we would get credit under Section 830G.
They will, Mr. Chairman, and the point is that this application wouldn't be a 0-point situation, but under an 8-30G scenario, it would double the minimum required number of affordable units.
Exactly. Thank you for that confirmation, and that is what I thought. But Commissioner Corcoran, that your point is well taken, and in support of my point, which is exactly that. Others? I don't see any other hands, and I don't hear anyone. I think well, you're all back on video now. Commissioner Brayman, it's much easier when everybody's on video. So are we ready to vote? I mean, I think that we've had all our discussion. I don't hear any other comments. The motion on the table is to deny the zoning regulation amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'm not hearing, and I'm not seeing any hands. Any abstentions? Okay. The motion carries unanimously, and the zoning regulation amendment is denied unanimously. Which brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is 5545 Park Avenue. Zone change application of Primrose Development LLC to establish a designed residence district on land presently zoned R3. Have a motion, Commissioner Noonan.
Move to deny.
Motion to deny, seconded by Commissioner Levy. Thank you. Commissioner Noonan?
Same considerations, I think. I know it's a little different, but same considerations from what I said earlier.
Right. And very good. Commissioner Levy, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Any other commissioners want to comment or question? Okay. I agree. I don't think we need to support the record in any different way. We've talked about all the relevant inquiries, and for the same reasons that we think it inappropriate to adopt the TOD, essentially the TOD style regulations into this area, I think is inappropriate here as well. for a design residence district. Okay, all in favor of the motion to deny, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none and seeing no hands. That motion carries unanimously, and the zone change application is denied unanimously. Next item is 5545 Park Avenue, special permit application of Primrose Development LLC pertaining to the construction of a residential development. Commissioner Noonan?
Move to deny.
Commissioner Noonan, motion to deny, second by Commissioner Levy. Thanks. Commissioner Noonan?
Based on our denial of the regulations, that current application doesn't comply with our regs.
Very good. Commissioner Levy, anything else to add?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay. The motion is to deny. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Voices or hands? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. That motion carries unanimously, and the special permit application is denied unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Next item is 53 Old Dam Road, special exception application of Michael Schramm pertaining to the construction of a rooftop deck in the beach district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this proposal for a rooftop deck is made pursuant to section 11.8 of the regulations that require rooftop decks in the beach district to be limited to no more than 50% of the area of the roof, and further subject to a special exception application. The relevant considerations for special exceptions relative to this application is, number one, is the location, type, character, and size of the use in buildings in harmony with and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood, and not hinder or discourage the use of adjacent property or impair its value. This application is in compliance with the 50% rule. So it's really just subject to that consideration for the special exception.
Thanks very much. Can I have a motion on this? Commissioner Braun. Commissioner Braun, you move to approve? Okay, thank you. Can I have a second? Commissioner Braman, thank you. Any comments, Commissioner Braun, first to you? You're on mute. Thank you.
Complies with the regulations. I think the few questions we had last time were adequately answered, and I don't think there's been any objection to it, so I think it's a perfectly fine application, should be approved.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Braman?
I agree with everything that was stated by Commissioner Braun. I think that the applicant demonstrated that the special exception criteria are met, and we should approve it and allow this to be built.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Any others? Yes, Commissioner Corcoran?
I just looked at the plans again today, and frankly, looking at the elevation, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I assume this is approved by the building department, or maybe it's the scale of our plan, but you can't see the structure on top of the house.
I will say that it's, the elevation view is a little challenging. The plan view gives a better kind of illustration of, and on the site plan kind of shows you if you have that available to you, the site plan itself probably shows you the best footprint of the deck. There is there's an area where the stair comes up, there's like a landing and then a door that goes out to the deck. It's difficult to see because it's like a dormer through the roof to accommodate that, but the plan view on the site plan is probably the best footprint, kind of shows you the footprint of where the deck will be.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Just on the elevation, there's these two windows that look like they're floating in midair.
Yeah, those would be the that's kind of set back from the edge of the roof, but that's the view of the, exiting out from the stairway that goes up. So that's your access in and off the deck.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. The motion is to approve. Commissioner Brayman, you are not on video any longer. Did we lose you? He was the movant. I don't know that I can take a vote without him or appoint someone in his place to sit in for
I think
him.
I was the
and
movant.
we'll have to have another motion. What's that, Commissioner Braun?
I think I was the movant. I think he seconded it.
He seconded, yes, yeah. He was one of the movements, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Seconded the motion.
I'll second.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Let me just see whether we need to have someone sit in. Because if he's truly gone, then we need to have an alternate appointed in his place for his absence. There we are.
I apologize. I'm back.
Okay. Very good. The motion is to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I don't see any hands to either, and I don't hear anyone. So that motion carries unanimously. The application is approved unanimously. The next item is 693 Fairfield Beach Road, special exception application of Declan Mahar pertaining to the construction of a rooftop deck in the beach district.
Mr. Chairman, again, Jim Went for the record. I really don't have anything different for this application than the last. Again, it's pursuant to section 11.8 of the regulations. It does not exceed 50% of the lot area. In the same special exception, consideration applies.
Very good, thank you. Can I have a motion on this? Commissioner Braun moves to approve. Thank you. Can I have a second? Commissioner Noonan, thank you. Commissioner Braun?
This actually has a pretty good rendering, Commissioner Corcoran. It shows the actual deck on top of the roof. It satisfies everything I would be looking for. I would approve it. But any questions we have are answered last time.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Noonan?
Nothing to add.
Thanks. Anyone else have any questions or comments? This is pretty straightforward. Okay, hearing none, seeing none. All in favor say aye or raise your hands. Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I don't hear anyone. I don't see anyone. So that motion carries unanimously and that application is approved unanimously. The next is 3135 Eastern Turnpike, special exception application of Sacred Heart University pertaining to the construction of a hockey arena in the designed research district and R3 zone.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, again, Jim Went for the record. Sacred Heart University is proposing to construct a hockey arena with a total capacity of approximately 3,600 people, including standees. The proposed arena is designed to be built into the slope that is below and adjacent to the existing east building on the west campus and will be located between that existing building and the Merritt Parkway. The arena will be connected to the newly built entrance lobby addition that was recently completed that connects the two existing former GE buildings and their respective parking areas beneath the building. If you recall that application, each of these buildings that were built by GE has a pedestal, a parking at grade with a pedestal above that, over which the buildings reside. And prior to Sacred Heart's ownership, there was really no physical connection between those buildings. They've recently completed a connector addition that really attractively brings those two buildings together. And what this proposal includes is a hallway extension from that connector that will gather people that will park in those parking areas beneath the existing buildings and let them connect down to this proposed arena. So it's detached from the structure, but there's a connector umbilical cord, if you will, to allow people access from the existing parking areas. There is a total of 776 parking spaces available on the site at the end. If this were to go forward, 669 of those spaces, again, are existing below the buildings, and there will be a total of 107 surface spaces. A new student drop-off plaza is proposed in front of the proposed arena. There was extensive discussion about the traffic analysis that indicates for a full capacity game, anticipates 809 vehicle trips arriving including between 36 and 42 shuttle bus trips, relying on that for the students. The report indicates that with a recommended modification of the timing of the existing coordinated traffic signals at both ends of Jefferson Street, all of the intersections studied will operate at an acceptable level of service. Although the analysis suggests that there is adequate traffic capacity for a sold-out event, the university has agreed to hire police officers to assist in traffic for all scheduled men's games. The university should also be required to maintain the level of shuttle service that they've committed to, which is outlined in their traffic analysis and for which the traffic analysis depends. Although primarily intended for hockey, the university must be mindful of their commitment to the community to limit impacts on potential ancillary events and activities. To that end, there was some discussion about some litigation that was made by the Stratfield Falls Association regarding the ZBA application, and the testimony was there's a tentative agreement, while not reduced to writing. The essence of that agreement is essentially the creation of a formal chain of communication between that association and Sacred Heart to provide a point of contact with the telephone number and make that association aware of events on the campus in the presence of police officers for events above a certain capacity. When that was discussed at the hearing, it was suggested that that capacity be 1,000 occupants. In looking at that in their anticipated chain of contact and notification of the Stratfield Falls Association, it makes sense, I think, and would be prudent to include the Stratfield Village Association in that chain of command chain of communication. So to include them, a potential condition to include the Stratfield Village Association in that requirement for communication of those events, I think would be appropriate. The standard considerations for special exception include, number one, is the location, type, character, and size and use of the buildings in harmony with and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood, and not hinder or discourage the use of adjacent property or impair its value. Two is the nature and location of the use and buildings and structures such that there is adequate access for fire protection. Three, are streets serving the proposed use adequate to carry prospective traffic with provisions made for entering and leaving the property without creating undue hazard to traffic or congestion, and is the proposed use consistent with the plan of conservation and development. That is all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. What is the deadline on this one?
Deadline for action on this application is April 1.
Very good. Thank you very much. Could I have a motion on this item, please? Commissioner Noonan?
I would move to approve.
Okay. Do you, would you like to include the conditions of approval as summarized by Mr. Went?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Went, did you also include the shuttle service maintaining the shuttle service in accordance with the assumptions in the traffic report?
Yes, just to recap, that would be a requirement to maintain the level of shuttle service on which the traffic analysis depends. The requirement that the university offered to hire police officers for all men's hockey games and to provide that chain of communication and notification of events above 1,000 persons that was offered to the Stratfield Falls Association, include that to the Stratfield Village Improvement Association.
Right. Very good. Thank you very much. Can I have a second on that motion? Commissioner Levy, thanks very much. Commissioner Noonan?
Thank you. I thought it was a good application. I thought it was a good use of the West Campus. That it is in a location and character that's in harmony or appropriate with the area, would not impair any kind of property values, adequate access to fire protection, and the streets were able to carry the prospective traffic and would be, at least for the use intended for the university, would be in compliance with the plan of conservation and development. I see no reason. I felt that it met all the criteria that is needed and thought it was a good application all around.
Very good. Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I agree with the comments of Commissioner Noonan. And in particular, the design of the building so that it's basically set largely below grade certainly promotes visual harmony with the neighborhood. So I think it's a good application and will serve the need and should be approved.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Francis?
I remember one comment that we said we wanted to include in conditions, so I'll ask if it should. One of the neighbors said they were going to sell refreshments and perhaps have a beer garden. And their response was this would all be interior and it would only occur during events. And at the time, Mr. Chairman, you said you thought that should be included in conditions.
Very, very good. I'm trying to think back on, I recall the beer garden thing. And also that there were going to be concessions and that they were interior.
Yeah, they said they were totally interior and only during events.
Yeah. Now, do we think that that would prevent, like food trucks, food carts, and that kind of thing?
I wouldn't think Sacred Heart would allow that.
Well, I'm only talking about speaking from my own experience where we have educational institutions having athletic events at which they have a couple of food trucks and the school organizes those and the kids and the parents frankly really find those to be quite nice.
Well, I guess it's their business. You have to get in their gate,
Well, it would be, and I suppose I'm not so sure how much I think we ought to be limiting that, and why we'd seek to do that. Do others have recollection of that or comments in that regard? Commissioner Brayman?
I guess I would just ask the question, what would, if we granted the special permit without condition as to food and beverage, what would they be permitted to do under that special permit?
Sure. Mr. Wendt, maybe you can shed some light on this. I would think that, according to the plans, they are permitted to, have their concessions. I mean, that is part of the application, and it was in the public hearing, responded to our questions. I would think that if they wanted to have something like a food trucks come in and the like, that they would be permitted to do that. I don't know if you need a permit to do that. Mr.
No,
Wendt.
I would agree, and I think the discussion relative to the beer garden in particular, I think, was language that was picked up in a press release or an article that was disseminated somewhere where that was a feature. And to clarify, they said that wasn't meant to, wasn't going to be an exterior service. That you're right, Commissioner Francis, that the concessions that are shown on the plans, whether or not you label any of those a beer garden, are all interior to the building. So I think that's part of their proposal and understood. They don't have any exterior venues shown or proposed, but I do agree with the chairman that if for an event they had a food truck or similar nature, that would not be in violation of the proposal.
I think, is that fair? I mean, so the plans presently do not call for any exterior food service, installations, right? And so I don't know that we need to make it a condition of approval that they not have those. We're not approving any, right? Does that satisfy your inquiry?
I guess so. I was just concerned for that neighbor who made that comment, but if they're not showing them outside, then I guess they wouldn't.
Right.
And they publicly stated it would be only during events and would be inside, so.
Right, exactly. So I also thought this was a good application. Commissioner Francis, you mentioned some of the neighbors who voiced some concerns. I found the concerns about water runoff to be unfounded based upon the engineering plans and the review by our engineering department and the controls that the applicant engineered to be put in place here. It's also quite some distance between the property and adjoining residential properties. I believe some of the residents that were taking issue with the construction and the runoff were also upland from the property. It is, more than half built into the side of the elevation, so it's the views are minimized from different areas. I think that the conditions that the applicant has built into their proposal, as well as have agreed to, they indicated that that it would be acceptable to them for us to condition the approval on these couple of these items, are intended to further minimize the impact of events and things on the neighbors, the neighborhood, and are requiring them to engage with the neighbors on an ongoing basis when other events are going to come are planned, so that they can minimize the traffic flows and the ingress of folks before the event starts and when everybody's now starting to leave. And yes, there will be certain congestion for a short period of time, but then that will alleviate. I think the advantages to this facility far outweighs the potential downside, and the facility is literally right off the exit of the Merrick Parkway, and so I have to believe, based upon the the traffic expert as well, said that there's going to be a good volume of traffic that comes into the facility directly off the Merritt and leaves directly onto the Merritt. I support this for all those reasons. I would encourage the neighborhood associations to engage with the leadership at Sacred Heart in the way that in the spirit that is intended here, so that they can, in good partnership, continue their relationship and be good neighbors to each other. And I think that that's certainly the intention. I think on both sides, as we heard from, for example, the co-presidents of the Stratfield Village Association in support of this application. So for all those reasons, I wholeheartedly agree. Anyone else have any other comments? Okay. Ready to vote? The motion on the table is to approve with the conditions as stated. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing no noes and no abstentions, the motion to approve passes unanimously, and the application is approved unanimously. Next items on our agenda, compliances. First is 425 Post Road, the zoning compliance application of Darcy Roy for an overall sign plan in the design commercial district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Jim Went for the record. This property is at the traffic circle on the Post Road, primarily occupied by medical tenants that are affiliated with the Hartford Medical Group. So they are looking to do a wall sign on the corner of that property, identifying their affiliation with Hartford Healthcare. There are other some ancillary signs, window graphics, and other things that you don't need to take action on proposed. But what's before you here is the two wall signs identifying Hartford Healthcare channel set letters that, in my opinion, complies in all respects with our requirements.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a motion, please? Commissioner Braun, move to approve. Okay, thank you. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Braun, any comments? You're on mute. Still, there
No, I
you
have no comments. I support this application.
go. Excellent. Commissioner Corcoran?
Same here, no comments.
Great. Yeah, it complies with our regulations. Anyone else have any other questions? Commissioner Francis?
What color are the letters, Mr. Went?
White.
Are they stainless steel or will they be lighted white or something?
They're white letter. They're internally illuminated white letters. The logo, there's a small logo,
Yeah,
and
the
a couple
logo,
other
yeah.
colors, but the I believe, I will double check, but I'm fairly certain that the letter set is white.
Yeah. I would think stainless steel might be a little more sophisticated looking, but whatever. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Motion is to approve. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I don't hear any noes or abstentions. Don't see any hands. Motion to approve is passed unanimously, and the compliance is approved unanimously. Next is 1474 Post Road, zoning compliance application of E&F Associates to establish a food service use ice cream in a portion of an existing building in the Center Design District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, again, Jim Went for the record. This building is on the north side of the Post Road downtown, pretty much opposite Reef Road. There is an eyeglass, an optometrist in there. There's a package store, and on the leftmost tenant of the building was an Allstate insurance office. It's a 700 square foot space, and they're proposing to convert it to retail, which is a wash as far as parking is concerned. There's a small amount of patron space, so it's a 3 space for 3 space requirement. It's going to be a retail store featuring custom popsicles with 1 table, small area for seating, but primarily takeout. So it's a change from office to retail, but the parking demanded under our regulations is equal. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Have a motion? Motion to approve by Commissioner Francis. Second. Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Francis, any comments?
Sounds like an excellent use. And is that 2 tables there, those 2 rectangles that are on the drawing?
Yes.
Right in the beginning, okay. No, I'm sure that it will be appreciated.
Yeah, no, we got a few ice cream shops in town.
Yeah.
Keeps the kids happy. Commissioner Levy?
I'd move to approve. I think the town likes ice cream more than insurance.
I don't know about that. Anyway, very good. Anyone else have any other questions or comments? We've been good use here, consistent with our regulations. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Or raise your hand. Any no, any abstention, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, seeing none. That motion passed unanimously. The compliance is approved unanimously. Next item is 1125 Post Road, a zoning compliance application of RK Brick Walk 5 LLC. Convert the existing second floor from office to 2 residential apartments in the Center Design District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, again, Jim Went. Just to orient you, this is, there's many buildings in the Brick Walk. This is the easternmost, the building that also contains Flipside Restaurant to kind of benchmark you. The second floor of this office was occupied for quite a while by an attorney's office and an appraisal business. What this proposal is to convert, this is an interior alteration. There's no exterior alteration proposed here. It's a conversion of the second floor to 2 residential apartments. So it's a change of use from office to apartments. Each apartment complies with our size requirement. They're actually fairly generously sized apartments. The office space, although this is a net reduction in parking as demanded by our regulations, there is a very comprehensive site plan. As you probably recall, the Brick Walk complex is kind of looked at holistically in terms of its parking calculation as an overall development. And the applicant is requesting here that instead of the 4 spaces required for the 2 apartments, because of economies of scale with the overall number of parking spaces combined, they're requesting a 50% reduction pursuant to the regulations that gives the commission the flexibility to reduce the residential component parking by up to 50% in mixed use. Not that they have any immediate need, but those 2 additional spaces that would result in a reduction could give them a little more wiggle room on any future tenant changeover and other areas of the development. So they are seeking a 50%. In addition to the change of use, they're asking your consideration for a 50% reduction from 4 spaces to 2 for these 2 particular apartments. And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Went. Could I have a motion on this, please? Commissioner Levy?
Move to approve.
Thank you. As stated by the applicant, or including some of those other terms that Mr. Went.
Yeah, and including the 50% reduction in parking.
Thank you. Commissioner Brayman? You're on mute. Just a second?
Second.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Very good. We'll start. Commissioner Braun, I see you. We'll start Commissioner Levy for any comments, then Brayman, then Braun.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this parcel. Actually, it was accountants who were up there. And I could see why I think it would be, it would lend itself at this stage more towards a residential use. I think in terms of the parking, I think that just ties in with the overall, the way the Brick Walk allocates their parking. Presumably there would be 2 designated specifically spots for this, which is what would be anticipated. And then of course there's plenty of parking for any overflow use, which would be basically handled by the Brick Walk as they do with their other tenants. So to that extent, and to the extent it's permitted, I would allow them that flexibility.
Thank you. Commissioner Brayman?
Yes, I would approve this, including with the proposed reduction of parking. I think it's consistent with trends and planning goals that we've expressed before about mixed-use development close to the center of town, so forth, encouraging pedestrian-friendly streets. So I think that all of that is consistent with approving this as compliant with our regulations, as well as exercising our discretion to reduce the parking requirement by 2.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Braun, you're next.
Can Jim or somebody explain the parking situation again to me? I'm a little bit confused about it. According to the narrative, it says there's an excess of 8 spaces. Just explain that so I understand it better. If there's an excess, why do they need to cut it in half?
Yeah, okay. So the first question is the square footage as an office occupancy would require 12 parking spaces.
Mhm.
The occupancy of 2 apartments at 2 per unit is 4, so the net the net
Okay.
reduction in 8 spaces. Well, yes, it's actually reducing the demand. Again, because this is a much larger overall development, you have discretion in your regulations to reduce the component parking for the residential, and they're just asking for that consideration given the total number of parking
Can you
spaces.
mute the
available
line?
to the site.
I'm getting a bunch of feedback. I'm sorry. If you're not speaking, please mute. Commissioner Went, please.
So while it is an overall net reduction under the regulations of 8 spaces, because of the total number of spaces that are on, in this overall development, they're asking you to exercise that discretion. So those 2 spaces, rather than having to be accounted for these 2 apartments, could be potentially assigned for other future considerations for other uses within the development.
Presumably, the people who live in these apartments could park anywhere in the whole development, this particular building?
Yes, and I would agree with Mr. Levy's assessment that they're likely going to have 2 spaces, 1 for each unit that's likely going to be assigned to them, and then any other spaces they may need or visitors, whatnot, would have the entirety of the development parking available to them.
Okay, thanks. Other questions or comments on this? I support this application with the reduction in parking. There are times when parking there is, immediately adjacent to the stores and restaurants is at a bit of a premium, but there are always spaces to park, and there's a whole underground garage there, which is also accessible, that is rarely ever used. Any other comments? Okay. Very good. The motion is to approve with the reduction in parking requirement. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No, I didn't hear any no's, and I didn't see any hands or no's and abstentions. So that motion passes unanimously, and the compliance is approved unanimously. Okay. Well, we are now down to our public hearing. We have 2 items that are related. I'll call them together. Before I do, I'll remind everyone that we have a curfew of 10 o'clock, which we will adhere to. If we don't finish the public hearing on these items, the public hearing will remain open, and we'll continue that to our next regularly scheduled meeting. The way this will work is the applicant will present. When they are finished, we will then move to public comment. And then after public comment is finished, the applicant will have a rebuttal. And the applicant is finished with their rebuttal, we'll close the public hearing on the item, and that will be closed. We have a chat box down in the lower right-hand corner of the WebEx, where you can either publicly or privately to the host list your name. We will call members of the public for comments in order they signed up. Once we've gone through the people who have signed up in the chat box, I'll make another call for anyone who would like to be heard. You either need to sign up or you need to be there ready to go at that time. So with that, I'll call our items. It's number 1 is a zoning regulation amendment, application of Fairfield Medical LLC, proposing new section 12.4.29, inclusionary multifamily residential use with a housing opportunity or workforce housing component. And Number 2, 4185 Blackrock Turnpike, a zoning compliance application of Fairfield Medical LLC pertaining to a 94-unit residential development pursuant to Section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in the Design Commercial District. Attorney Smith, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. Wendt, Ms. Harrigan. For the record, my name is Chris Smith. I am a land use attorney with the law firm of Alter and Pearson, and I appear before you this evening on behalf of the owner applicant, Fairfield Medical LLC, concerning the two applications that are before you, a zone text amendment and an application for zoning compliance to permit a 94-unit residential community development on real property known as 4185 Blackrock Turnpike located in Fairfield. As a housekeeping matter, Mr. Chairman, the property is not located in a designated aquifer protection area, or is it located in a designated watershed area of a water company. However, we still did send notice of the filing of both applications to the Connecticut Department of Public Health, as well as Aquarian Water Company, as provided by Section 8-3I. And that those returns, the receipts and the certificates of the certificates and the green cards have been returned and are part of the record. We'd like to introduce the members of the team that we'll be hearing from this evening on behalf of the owner applicant, Fairfield Medical LLC. We do have Paul Richter attending this the public hearing. We have Walter Jobst of the Huntington Company LLC from our engineering team. John Geddes, our architect of Geddes Associates, Inc. Our traffic engineer, Dave Sullivan of SLR Consulting, and our fire safety expert, Mr. Joseph Versteeg. And we will be hearing from those gentlemen later in the presentation when we're covering the site-specific development proposal. As the chair indicated, it's a two-part application, and it's my understanding, Mr. Chairman, I think you said this, that we will be entertaining both of the proposals with the single public hearing. And as part of the two-part application, again, the proposal is in support of a proposed 94-unit residential community to be located on real property known as 4185 Blackrock Turnpike. The community will provide for housing opportunity or workforce housing units, specifically 30% of the total number of dwellings or 29 dwellings or units will be deed restricted as housing opportunity units for 40 years as provided by 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes. Now, the proposal does involve a text amendment for a new section, section 12.4.29 of your zoning regulations, and this would allow for a new permitted use in the design commercial zone district. And we've entitled it, quote, inclusionary multifamily residential use with a housing opportunity or workforce component, end of quote. And this includes and provides for housing opportunity or affordable housing component as provided by section 8-30G, subject to compliance, zoning compliance, review and approval by the commission. The second application is a application for zoning compliance, and that pertains specifically to the 94-unit residential community. The format of our presentation will be, first we'll address the zone text amendment, and then we'll address the zoning compliance application. I will provide our presentation as the zone text amendment, and I know how the commission feels about zone text amendments with 830G, so I will try to keep that brief, but I'll summarize what is in the text amendment for you for purposes of the record in the hearing. And then the entire team, again, will be involved with the site development plan presentation. And specifically as to the site development plan, again, we'll hear from Mr. Walter Jobst as to the engineering components, John Geddes as to the architectural components. The traffic study will be presented by Mr. David Sullivan of SLR, and fire safety concerns and issues will be addressed by Mr. Joseph Versteeg. As to the zone text amendment, as the commission is aware, we did file 3 documents with our applications pertaining to 830G in particular. I will be referring to them during this portion of our presentation, along with some slides and a PowerPoint presentation that we have provided to your professional staff. The three documents comprise, one, our submittal letter that does provide a summary of the proposal and a statement of use, which is incorporated in the summary letter. The second document is the proposed zone text amendment, and the third is an affordability plan as required by Section 8-30G. At the outset, I would like to briefly address Section 8-30G and the shifting of the legal burden of proof relative to a proposal submitted pursuant to the provisions of 8-30G. I know wholeheartedly, and I know with full knowledge that the Commission is well aware of this, and this is just more for the folks that may be attending one of these public hearings for the first time involving 830G. But it does provide, the statute, 830G, provides for municipalities that are not exempt, that don't have 10% of their housing that qualify as affordable, as determined by the Connecticut Department of Housing Authority, then the burden, if the municipality doesn't comply for 10% of affordable units, and that's a definition. It comprises a number of different type of housing products. It shifts the burden of proof to the Commission relative to sustaining a denial of the application. And essentially, and I'm just paraphrasing, the application cannot be denied unless there is substantial evidence that the proposal will adversely impact a substantial public interest. And examples of what do not constitute substantial public interest would be perceived impacts on the school system, whether the proposal is consistent with other development in the neighborhood, such as single-family residential homes, and other similar as to other zoning applications. Fears and speculations are not valid reasons for denial. Now, in summary, what I would like to do is just walk you through very quickly the summary letter. That is the first document that does appear in the link relative to the record for this application. The subject property at 4185 Blackrock Turnpike comprises approximately 2.3 acres, and it is located in the design commercial district. The property is located adjacent to an entrance ramp serving the Merritt Parkway. Previously, and I don't know if everyone on the Commission is aware of this, I think most of you were on the Commission, but previously you approved land use approvals, a special permit to permit a medical office use of the subject property. Unfortunately, because of appeals that were taken, the opportunity to go forward with that as a medical office use was lost. The proposed residential use is essentially within the development footprint associated with the previously approved medical office use. The medical office was approved in 2015, and this Commission just recently, last fall, approved the 5-year extension relative to that approval, and both that the initial approval and the extension by the Commission are part of the record. The subject property is currently undeveloped. It has access to both public water and public sewer. We did obtain approval from the Water Pollution Control Authority, the WPCA of the town of Fairfield, confirming that there's adequate sewer capacity to serve the proposed multifamily residential dwelling. The proposal comprises 94 units, 26 of which will be 1-bedrooms, and 68 will be 2-bedrooms. The community has an internal driveway system, and Walter Jobst will be walking you through the specifics of this, of the Huntington Company, relative to the site design. But it does provide for an internal driveway system with full access on Blackrock Turnpike. We do have a wetlands approval for the regulated activities. There was some litigation concerning that, stipulated judgment that has been made part of the record. Stormwater runoff will be collected and treated. Again, we're not located in a public watershed or an aquifer protection area. However, we did provide the notices required pursuant to Section 8-3I as if it were located in one or both of those areas. The proposal includes a housing opportunity or workforce housing component as provided by the affordable housing provisions of 8-30G. And what that means is that 30% of the total number of dwellings, or 29 dwellings, will qualify as workforce housing as provided by 8-30G. Specifically, The proposal provides for 14 dwellings to be offered at rental prices that will preserve the housing for which persons and families pay 30% or less of their income, where such income is less than or equal to 80% of the median income as defined by 8-30G. 15 dwellings will be offered at rental prices to families qualifying at the 60% level of the median income. And these rental prices do target families with incomes comparable to many of Fairfield's municipal and Board of Education employees, and we'll get back to that in a short while. And there will be restricted deed covenants to ensure that these dwellings are rented at both prices, and a sample for 40 years, and a sample of a deed restriction that has been included in the affordability plan is part of the record for the commission. As the commission is aware, there's a 10% list that's maintained by the Connecticut Department of Affordable Housing to identify municipalities that are permanently exempt from 8-30G applications. This is not strictly speaking a measure of housing need. However, it is more of an indication of a municipality's lower cost housing stock relative to other municipalities in the state. And as I indicate at page 4 of the summary letter, according to the 2019 Affordable Housing Appeals List provided and generated by the Connecticut Department of Housing, Fairfield's housing stock, only 2.47% of the town's housing stock qualifies as governmentally assisted or deed restricted in compliance with 8-30G. And as the commission is aware, apparently the number back in 2000 was actually 2.71, whereby the percentages actually decreased in the past 20 years. Now, again, the subject application package before you this evening is two components. The first is the zone text amendment, and I would respectfully refer you to that. I'm just going to go through it very quickly. It does provide for a new section 12.4.29 entitled Inclusionary Multifamily Residential Use with a housing opportunity or workforce housing component. You do have a submission draft that was dated November of 2020 that was submitted with the application. The intent and purpose is to provide multifamily dwelling units on certain property located within the design commercial district subject to the provisions of this particular section that is proposed before you. And the purpose again is to provide for residential communities with a housing opportunity or workforce housing component that qualifies as affordable as provided by section 8-30G. The text amendment is to apply to properties where there are existing inadequate public facilities and services, and the real property associated with a proposal under this text amendment have to be located within 300 feet of an entrance and or an exit ramp of either the Merritt Parkway or I-95. Just referring to the text amendment, subsection 0.2 lists the permitted uses, and specifically it permits multifamily residential dwellings, related accessory buildings, amenities, structures, and uses. There are minimum site requirements provided in subsection 3, where the minimum lot size has to be 2 acres. Again, it has to have access, the subject property, to public water and public sewer, and be located within 300 feet of an entrance and or exit ramp serving the Merritt or Interstate I-95. The bulk area, there are specific bulk area, dimensional, and open space requirements in subsection 4. Subsection 5 provides for other standards, including private driveways, parking, minimum parking of 1.25 spaces per unit, density, and signage. Subsection 6 provides for, lists the various documents that need to be submitted when applying for a zoning compliance application under this provision. The traffic study under subsection 7 may be required by the commission. The procedures and requirements for an application are set forth in subsection 8. Subsection 9 specifies the requirements for the workforce housing or mixed income component, specifying that 30% of the total number of dwellings have to be deed restricted for at least 40 years and meet the requirements of 8-30G. Subsection 10 provides for the specific requirements for workforce housing or mixed income units, including that a an affordability plan be submitted in support of an application, again, that complies with Section 8-30G. And the proposed text amendment does provide last provision that a violation of the regulations contained in this section shall not result in the forfeiture or reversion of title, but it enables the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission or its designated agent to otherwise retain all enforcement powers granted by the Connecticut General Statutes as provided by Section 8-12 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Now, although not specifically required for Section 8-30G proposal, I would like to respectfully refer the Commission to some PowerPoint slides. I don't know, Emmeline, if we can pull those up. It should be, if we can go to page, actually, if we can stop at the first slide, which is an aerial, Emily, that's, we'll start there and then we'll just go to the other one. No luck?
Oh, you can't see that?
No, I can see the first slide, Emmeline. I don't see, oh, I can see the one on the left. I don't see it on the major part of the screen. Is it showing up in total?
I did it as a slideshow. Let me just escape out of that and then just.
Yeah, I think you need to, before you start sharing your screen, you need to go into slideshow mode because it's not
Oh,
going
I do.
into
Okay.
that rest. Yeah.
All right. Let me start again.
I
Sorry.
see the slideshow, yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Oops. Oh, my bad. Hold on. All right. Can you see it or no?
So you need to, I believe you need to stop sharing your screen and then in PowerPoint, go into presentation mode and then share your screen.
Oops. Uh-oh.
Mr. Chairman, maybe what I should do, just keeping in mind the 10 o'clock curfew, is I can continue on, and if we'll probably need those slides for the other presenters more than we need it for what I'm going to be presenting to the commission.
Okay.
But if it comes back, we can jump on it.
Let's give Ms. Harrigan 10 more seconds.
Ah. I seem to lose the ability to, once I put it into slideshow, okay, wait, hold on. Here we go. No, I can't get to the meeting. I can just do it from the PowerPoint. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't get it to do a full slideshow without knocking me out of being able to share.
Okay. And so for some reason your PowerPoint right now you have to be in that edit mode where you're just doing it on the left. Oh, yeah. See, you have the left column.
Yeah, so you can see the left column now, but you can't see everything if I go to full screen share.
Well, yeah, no, it's just all it's doing is coming up with enable editing. So I think you need to enable editing and then make it bigger. Just make it as big as you can.
Okay.
Maybe now, just try it one more time to do the slideshow.
Yeah,
Okay,
slideshow.
is that working?
There we
Oh,
go.
I think you've
Okay,
got
sorry
it.
about that, guys. I
Oh,
apologize.
nicely done. Okay. But if we
Carry on.
next slide, possibly. Ah, I thought that might mess up the mojo there, but so this slide is an aerial of the subject property. Just very quickly, it is located in the, there's highlighted, and I can't put a cursor on it, but it has like an L shape. You can see the Merritt Parkway going through from, it's north is to the top essentially. So the Merritt Parkway running north to south. To the west of it, on the northern side, there is the Hi Ho Motel with the Barcelona Wine Bar and the Wine Zone Liquors in the northwest corner, approximately 10 o'clock from the intersection of Blackrock Turnpike and the Merritt Parkway. Blackrock Turnpike goes left to right, essentially west to east. On the top right-hand corner at 2 o'clock, the northeast corner is the commuter parking lot that's designated on the aerial. Going clockwise down to about 4 o'clock, and the southeast corner is the Connecticut DOT storage yard. If you cross the Merritt Parkway heading in a westerly direction, up on top of the hill, in the distance is the Greenfield Hunt condominiums with approximately 100 units. And again, that's at about 7 o'clock. If we're going with 12 o'clock being at the top. And then again, rotating around, crossing Blackrock Turnpike on the opposite side at 10 o'clock, we have the Hi Ho Motel with the Barcelona Wine Bar and the Wine Zone Liquors. So essentially, not surprisingly, it is designated in the design commercial district. Those are the essential uses that we do have in the immediate vicinity. What I would like to do is, well, the next slide is just, again, the overview that we had talked about. And if we can continue on, we did the presentation overview, just kind of skip through these to keep moving. Now with the text amendment, as we indicated, or I indicated, it's not really necessary to demonstrate that the consistency with the proposal with your POCD, as with the prior application that you were discussing on Park Avenue. But Ms. Harrigan, if we can just go back one more slide. Just was going to have a couple of references for you, and I understand that that the town is committed to affordable housing opportunities for individuals in the town and throughout the state. But just for the record, we have some excerpts from the state of Connecticut 2018-2023 plan for conservation and development with concerning growth management principles. We have 3 that we provided to you, and just to read this for the purposes of the audience. The first is to expand housing opportunities and design choices to accommodate a variety of household types and needs. Second bullet, concentrate development around transportation nodes along major transportation corridors to support the viability of transit options. And the last bullet, promote integrated planning across all levels of government to address issues on a statewide, regional, and local basis. So that's from the State Plan of Conservation and Development. I would respectfully refer you to the next slide, and these are some excerpts from your POCD adopted by this commission on November 15, 2016. First bullet is, these are goals that the commission has indicated would strive for and strive toward going forward for 2016. The first bullet provides creation of a transitional zone for multifamily housing to stem the spread of business uses into residential neighborhoods, presumably along commercial corridors such as this property. Second bullet, housing opportunities to people of all ages, creeds, races, incomes, and physical disabilities. And the last bullet, town recognizes the obligation to provide affordable housing and should continue to pursue appropriate options to supply affordable housing in all areas of town. And then if we can go to the next slide, please, Emmeline, thank you. This is from your transit-oriented development study from October of 2019. And one of the findings that you had there in gold is to, quote, encourage housing development that expands unit type and cost options, particularly for young professionals and seniors who have fewer options matching their preferences, and expands the town's supply of affordable housing, end of quote. Now, again, these really aren't necessary relative to an 830G application, but we were hoping to just share these with you and the audience, and would respectfully and do respectfully submit that the proposed text amendment is certainly consistent not only with the state POCD, but more particularly with this commission's and the town of Fairfield's plan of conservation and development. What I would like to do next is we'll go on to the zoning compliance application. We just provided you with an aerial depiction of the location of the property. What I would like to do before turning the presentation over to the other members of the team is just quickly walk you through the affordability plan. And I know that you are familiar with affordability plans, and specifically with this version, but this was submitted in support of the application. The submission draft is dated November 2020, and we do provide for I'm just going to go through the main headings, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Roman numeral 1 addresses apartment homes designated as mixed income units, indicating that 30% or 29 units will be designated as affordable or workforce housing pursuant to section 8-30G. And there is a Schedule A attached to the plan depicting that breakdown. Section 2 indicates that these units will be deed restricted for at least 40 years as required by 830G. Roman numeral 3, that the units will be constructed pro rata and that they'll be dispersed evenly throughout the community as they are leased out. Roman numeral 4, the construction provides that the construction of the mixed income units will be comparable and in substantial conformance with the market rate plans and with the plans that have been submitted to you in support of this application. Number 5 provides for the entity for administering this plan going forward, subject to possibly being changed in the future. Roman numeral 7 addresses notice of initial rental and mixed income unit provisions and that procedure. Roman numeral 7 addresses resident eligibility. Roman numeral 8 provides that there must be an affirmative fair housing marketing plan generated in support of this affordability plan, and it spells out continuing on through onto page 3 those requirements. Roman numeral 9 at page 4 addresses the application process and spells it out, the application form, the interview process, verification of the applicant's income to confirm compliance with the restrictions. Roman numeral 8 is entitled prioritization of applicants for initial rental. There's a process there for first come, first serve. And Roman numeral 11 addresses the maximum rental price. And what I would like to do here is just walk the commission and members who are observing this in this remote hearing through this sample formula. And this actually appears at page 8 in the affordability plan. And this is the formula for calculating the maximum rent for a 2-bedroom rental with families earning less than or equal to 80% of the statewide median income as provided by section 8-30G. And there is there are a number of steps for doing this, but essentially as you determine the household income that a family would qualify under for this rent, and I would respectfully refer you to item number 3, which is calculating 80% of the adjusted income for a family. And this would, if you look at number 1, you determine the area median income or statewide median income, and you adjust it for a family size of 4, and that generates a number of $100,400. You adjust that by a number of individuals, calculating 90% of that, it gets down to $90,360, and then you take 80% of that number, and that's $72,288. And that means that families earning that amount of money will qualify for one of these rentals, one of these deed-restricted rentals for the 2 bedrooms at 80%. And if you go all the way to the last number in the formula under number 9, the maximum rent that could be charged relative to one of these units would be $1,400, $1,401. And what we did is, remember that 72,000 and change salary, annual salary. What we would like to do, and these are folks that would qualify for this housing, and this is information is taken from the town of Fairfield budget, as well as your BOE, the Board of Ed budget, and essentially your police officers in a range of, in the step 1 to step 4 range, will qualify for this housing, for these units. Teachers, 10-month employees, teachers in the step 1 to step 13 range will qualify for these rentals. And going down to the last 2 items under the International Association, well, the last one, the firefighters in your town, the town of Fairfield, and for steps 3 through 4 will qualify for this rental housing. So the point being that the housing is offered to individuals who work in your town, work for the town, and provide and work for your children in the Board of Ed, through the Board of Ed, teachers. These individuals and their families would qualify for this housing in this proposal. We do have a breakdown in the Schedule A of the housing units. I believe John Geddes will get to this more specifically in his presentation, our architect. But again, this is taken from Schedule A in the affordability plan. In conclusion, relative to my portion of the presentation, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, in sum, I would respectfully submit that the site development provides for an adaptive reuse of an underdeveloped and currently vacant real property with a transitional multifamily use in a transit-oriented area. It's right next to the Merritt Parkway. And again, that's how the text amendment is drafted. And there is a need when developers are looking to develop properties to provide this type of housing. I know that you like to see things near this type of development next to a train station, but I respectfully submit that not everyone wants to have a rental next to the train station. But having easy and immediate access to a major highway, such as the Merritt Parkway or I-95, where individuals could get on the road and get to where they work. As I heard with the Park Avenue, it takes traffic from the center of town, but it also puts individuals closer to where they want to be to have easy access to where they work up and down the major thoroughways. Not everybody living in Fairfield hops on the train and goes to Norwalk or Stamford or down to the city for work. So they're not using the train on a regular basis necessarily for this type of housing. And I would respectfully submit that all of this is consistent with the goals and the components referenced in your POCD and your TOD study. And again, the site plan provides for a 94-unit residential community. We did go through code review. We did obtain sewer approval, and we have wetlands approval. And again, copies of those approvals have been made part of the record. And Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, that completes my review of the zone text amendment and an overview of the affordability plan. And with your permission, what I'd like to do at this point is turn the presentation over to Walter Jobst of the Huntington Company, who will walk you through the engineering details with the site-specific plan. And after that, we will hear from Mr. Geddes with the architectural components, Mr. Sullivan as to traffic, and Mr. Versteeg as to the fire safety issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I guess I'm on. My name's Walter Jobst. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor for about the last 40 years. I'm employed by the Huntington Company that has offices in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm kind of doing a fill-in role this evening. The engineer that is responsible for these plans had a family emergency. So I'm kind of filling in for him, but I am very familiar with this site, having worked on different proposals in the past. The entrance to this site is along Blackrock Turnpike, roughly in the center of the frontage. You have one entrance aisle, 2 exit aisles, so you can make right and left-hand turns. You have a building footprint that mirrors, or not mirrors, but is consistent with a former approval of a medical building. Conservation has reviewed this and has given us their approval on this. We have this structure. We have parking underneath at building number 2. We have parking underneath building number 1, which is to the east, and that is a 2-level parking garage, whereas the parking under building 2 is for 1 level. And we also have parking that wraps around the building from the north to the east side. We have sanitary sewer, water, gas, electrical available in Blackrock Turnpike, and we will make those connections. Can I go to the site plan? Next slide. Yeah, there we go. We've proposed a extensive stormwater management system for this proposal. That would consist of your standard catch basins, manholes, pipes, whatnot. Those will all be piped to a underground detention system located at the southeast corner of the building, adjacent to the entrance ramp to the Merritt Parkway. Those units will be 4x4 concrete gallery units, roughly 120, 130 feet in length. All of the surface runoff from the pavement and the surface runoff from the roofs will enter into that system. The surface pavement prior to entering the system will go through a stormwater quality unit and then discharge into that system. We have another system on the Camford section of the building. It consists of 3 units. That will take discharges from the footing drains and redirect them back into the ground to replenish the groundwater supply. Discharge from this detention system for the building and the parking will go to the state drainage system located just to the east alongside the entrance ramp to the Merritt, and continue down in a easterly direction and eventually end up in Cricker Brook. Now, the detention system will take the existing discharges from the site and reduce those and store them within those underground chambers and release them at a reduced rate from what they are now. We have a reduction across the board for all storms from a 1-inch storm, which is typically 80% of the rainfall we get in this area is a 1-inch storm. We'll go from a 1-inch storm to a 100-year storm. There will be reduction for all of those storms from this system. We have, as Attorney Smith says, Conservation has approved this. We have been in contact with engineering, and they have reviewed and approved these plans. We have made preliminary discussions with the state of Connecticut regarding this, and they will reserve their approval until it is approved by your commission. On a positive note, we also meet the DEEP stormwater quality and quantity criteria in reducing the 2-year post-development storm substantially down to the 1-year pre-development storm rate of flow. And in addition, we are meeting the conservation requirement of reducing the 10-year post-development discharge to the 2-year post-development rate. And I think that about covers it, if there's any questions.
Thanks very much. Can't see commissioners. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Jobst? Speak up, please. No? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Jobst.
Thank you.
Well, you can't leave yet. Sorry, Chris Smith for the
I'm
record.
not leaving. I'm just turning off the mic.
No, you can't do that yet.
I can't do that
Mr.
either.
Jobst, if you could just.
Oh,
for the
that's right.
record-
You have a question for me.
you have to state your credentials for the record as well. I know
I
you
thought I
said you
did that
did
at the beginning. All right. My credentials. I am a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor, licensed in the state of Connecticut. I have been licensed for approximately 40 years. I have worked for the Huntington Company in one capacity or another, mostly engineering, since 1975.
a little longer than I've been doing the law, but it's been a while.
I'm older than you.
And I do have you certainly are. No, and I do have one quick question for you. Mr. Jobst, in your professional opinion, will the proposed residential community result in an adverse impact to a substantial public interest in health, safety, or welfare?
In my professional opinion, there will be no adverse impact, substantial or otherwise, to the public health, safety, or welfare.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, sir.
You're quite welcome.
I think John Geddes may be up next. Hopefully John's here. Here we go. John, you have to unmute yourself, I believe.
Yeah, still muted, sir.
How's that?
Better.
Yeah, no, we can hear you.
All right, so for the record, my name's John Geddes. I'm a principal in the architectural firm of Geddes Associates. I'm also president of Primrose Companies. Primrose Companies specializes in design, development, and construction, and it's been in business doing the same for the past 40 years. This project is unique in the sense that the design of the building was dictated by the footprint of a previously approved medical building, as stated. And the other uniqueness of it is the site. The topography of the site is such that the building on the southeast side, is 6 stories, and on the north side is 4 stories. The site lended itself for, and it's not 2 buildings, it's one continuous building. And it's shaped in the format that lends itself to the topography on the site. There is 40 or 50 foot of difference in grade on the site, and so the building wraps around it. The building on the west side has a 2-level parking deck and 1 level on the north side, or there's 2 levels, with the second level being continuous and the first level being just partial. Above that, we have 4 floors of residential development. The residential development consists of 94 apartments, 68 of which are 2-bedroom, 24 are 1-bedroom, and 2 are efficiencies. The 2 efficiencies, I believe, are roughly 600 square feet. The one bedrooms average out at 750 to 850 square feet, and the two bedrooms average out at about 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. The design, as you can see from the rendering, is a combination of various siding along with brick. This is brick veneer. It does have pitched roofs to the building, and various gables, as you can see from the rendering. To go to the back to the parking decks. The parking decks also house self-storage cages that are throughout the parking garages, and this would accommodate one cage or locker to each one of the apartments. We've also included bike racks at each level as part of the amenities for the building. So at every level you have the lockers and the bike racks. There are two other amenity features that have been included. That's a meeting room I believe it's on the first floor, actually on the second floor, and then there was on the west side of the building there's an observation deck that's been provided on the roof. On the opportunity units, basically we have one efficiency unit, 7 one-bedroom and 21 two-bedroom that are being provided. They've been scattered throughout the building so that it complies with the requirements. All of the units are self-contained. They have a laundry facility. They have dining, living, and bedrooms. The one bedroom units in efficiency would have one bath. The two bedroom units would have two baths. I don't think that there are two locations that are being provided for the trash disposal by means of trash chutes. One is adjacent to the elevators in the middle, and another location is to the north side. Both end up in a trash compaction room and again, we've gone through this in other buildings. Basically, the rubbish is compacted, and we have companies. There's various companies that handle these, but in this particular case, we have All American that has issued a letter stating that that they do this type of trash removal at other similar buildings. If you have any other questions, I'd be more than glad to answer them.
Thanks, Mr. Getz. Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Getz? Okay. Commissioner Braun.
So there's 26 one-bedroom, 68 two-bedroom, 94 units, 162 bedrooms, and 139 parking spaces. There's no mass transit, to my knowledge. Where's the overflow? Where are people going to park that need a car? I'm assuming there'll be more people than there are parking spaces, and perhaps more cars than there are parking spaces, because it's not near mass transit.
Commissioner, I believe that would be a question that would be better answered by the traffic engineer involved here. I'm only involved with the architectural parts of the project.
Okay, I guess I'll ask that question again when the traffic person comes on. When you say I have another question, 6 stories on one side, could you explain that again? You said there was something in the middle. Is that a hill? Is this built with a hill behind it?
There's a hill behind the building. The topography is such that adjacent to the Merritt Parkway ramp, the grade is lower. than it is on the north side of the site. So what we did is we designed the building to follow the topography of the site, so that there would be minimum amount of excavations involved. There is a natural or previously made pad that will accommodate the development without any blasting. But behind the building, there is a hill.
And 66 stories, what's the height of the building above grade in the front of the building versus in the back of the building?
Well,
The
again,
buildings, I guess.
yeah, it's different. I mean, it's difficult when you're zooming because the plans are so small, but so small of scale. But basically, the building on the west side is roughly, I believe, is 62 feet, whereas it's only 40-something feet on the north side. And the grade, the grade in front of the building, as you can see from the rendering, there is a stone retaining wall that follows the building in a circular fashion. But again, the building was designed to follow the topography on site.
So the building, we're looking at the part that faces the Hi-Ho here.
That's correct. Well, it's the bend that follows, basically, Hi-Ho is across the street, but as it wraps around the entrance ramp to the Mahar Parkway.
So when you said 6 floors, did you say, I'm sorry, what was the height you said that was, the 6 stories?
About 62 feet.
And the other side of the building, which goes around and faces like, I guess, west towards up down the Mahar Parkway, that's 40?
That's about 62 feet tall.
But I thought that was fewer stories. Why would it be the same height?
Yeah, as it heads up north, it's basically across the street from the Hi-Ho parking lot. At that point, it's 4 stories high.
Where is it 4 stories?
It's on the extreme north side.
Oh, okay.
In that rendering, Commissioner Braun, I think it would be in the top right, going, over the car to the right there.
Going up Blackrock Turnpike.
Yeah, you're looking up Blackrock Turnpike that way, correct? The ramp would be to your left.
Okay.
Parkway. Correct, John?
Yes, that's correct.
It's your rendering. Just, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other commissioners have any other questions for Mr. Gates? Thanks. Attorney Smith?
Hey, Mr. Geddes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I just very quickly, in your professional opinion, will the proposed residential community result in an adverse impact to a substantial public interest in health, safety, or welfare?
No, I don't believe it will.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Geddes.
I actually have a follow-up question.
Oh,
Commissioner Braun?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I forgot. Lighting, is there any effort to keep the lighting? It's a very tall building. I know in some condos, they put very bright lights at the top of the building for safety. How is the lighting laid out to avoid light streaming into the nearby, whatever is nearby? I think there's some houses behind this, and there's open space adjacent as well.
Commissioner, just to give you, some thought, basically this building behind it is a hill. The topography is such that the top of the hill is higher than the roof of this building. So any homes north of it, they're not even going to see or west of this site, they're not even going to see the building. The good thing is that, well, not the good thing, the feature is that the majority of the parking is in the parking garages, which means that it's not, if you look at the design, basically it's not the typical podium building that, that we have proposed in various other locations. In this case, it's basically a parking garage whereby the lighting will be baffled by the perimeter walls. So I don't think that, as far as the parking lot lighting, that yes, there will have to be some parking lot lighting. I'm not totally certain as to, how the site will be handled, but that particular parking is basically adjacent to the Merritt Parkway. If you look at, it wraps around adjacent to the Parkway, ramp. But whenever whenever the site lighting is designed, it's always designed with a downlight feature, baffled from being able to be spread somewhere else. So I don't see that this will affect any of the residential homes or buildings anywhere near this site. So that's basically my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Attorney Smith?
I think, for the record, Chris Smith, I think Mr. Sullivan is up next. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission.
Good evening, David Sullivan for the record. Professional engineer in Connecticut. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. I am with XLR Consulting, formerly known as Mylona McBrome. I'm the manager of traffic and transportation planning for SLR. What I've prepared tonight, and you can go to the next slide if you don't mind, online, is a short series of slides which I'll go through in not great detail, but some detail, and then I'd be happy to drill down on any of the specifics at the conclusion. The scope of our study is very traditional traffic impact study. We review existing conditions. In this particular case, we started this project quite a while ago, so our data was collected pre-COVID. In fact, it was late 2018 when we did our data collection for this project. So we didn't get caught with the pandemic issues with traffic. Our next step was to estimate future traffic conditions that includes estimating the amount of traffic that would be developed, that would be generated, and what the impact would be. We look at the site access, including sight lines, and we make recommendations. What you see now on the screen is the estimated site traffic that would be generated. The top line in this table, the top row, shows what the estimate is for this development, the 94 units. This is based on Institute of Transportation Engineer statistics. As you can see, in the morning peak hour, we estimate 34 trips, and in the afternoon peak hour, 41 trips. We compared that under the skinny blue line there with the previously approved medical office building. And as you can see, in both peak hours, the medical office building generated more traffic. On the bottom of this table, you'll see the percentages of where we feel the traffic would be coming and going from. The 5% to and from the north or west, depending on the orientation that you consider Blackrock Turnpike. 20% to and from the west on Route 15 or south, and 25% to and from the north or east, and 50% to and from the south or east on Blackrock Turnpike. Next slide, please.
Mr. Sullivan, are you going to come back to the sightlines, or you mentioned the sightlines? You'll come back to that?
I will come back to it, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Next slide, please. I won't go through all of these letters. This table and the next table are the results of all the level of service analysis. What I will point out is that if you look at the two columns, background and combined, in both morning and afternoon, there's no changes to level of service. You will see in the afternoon that we did suggest some timing changes. That was primarily so we can manage queues better, as requested by DOT, which I'll talk about shortly. The next page, or the next slide, again, is two other of the intersections we analyzed. What you will see here
Besides the lack of impact on just about all of the movements, there are 2 existing movements that are level of service D, and the timing revisions we're making for the queue management. We also had the opportunity to improve the levels of service in the afternoon, where those D approaches could now become C, level of service C. Next slide, please. This is the queuing, and why this was important. When we, DOT had looked at this project way back when it was medical office, and we revisited it with them when this project came around. One thing is that this will ultimately go to the Office of State Traffic Administration because of the size of the building. But they also talked about some of the things they wanted us to be certain of. And one of the things they were particularly not concerned about, but wanted to make sure we addressed was the distance between this driveway and the intersection for the southbound on-ramp to the parkway. The distance, that critical distance, is about 200 feet. And you can see on that top row, which is the eastbound left through and right movements, currently that calculates out at about 250 feet. And when we add our traffic to it, it grows by about a half a car length for 10 feet. With the timing improvements we made, we can get that maximum queue length. And again, this is the 95th percentile queue. So essentially the maximum queue under the 200 foot requirement by about a car length, almost a car length. And the remaining information there shows how much room we have to queue cars and what we expect the queues to be. So the timing changes not only addresses some level of service issues that we identified, but it also is an improvement to queuing, particularly in the eastbound approach. Last slide, please. This was the sightline summary. The way we look at sightlines, we look at for both posted speed limit and the 85th percentile speed. The kind of like the Cadillac, I guess you would say, is to look at the 85th percentile speed. So we did put a traffic counter out there to collect speed data. We found the 85th percentile speed to be about 43 miles an hour, which would require sight distances of 480 feet. And the check marks indicate that in both directions we can achieve the 480 feet. It's probably a little bit, it's 480, you probably don't need the 480 feet looking to your right because they are coming out of 2 signalized intersections, but nonetheless, we checked to make sure that the free flow speed of 480 feet of sightline was available. So we have good sightlines, we have good access, 2-lane access, good levels of service exiting the driveway, and safe conditions are expected. So in terms of the traffic portion of this, our data collection, our analysis, our findings all point to the fact that we don't see that this development would result in any safety or operational deficiencies being created or exacerbated in the area. The beauty of having my office in my home is when somebody tweaks you and says, can you address the parking? You say, sure, I'd be happy to. We didn't do a parking study per se, but we've done quite a few parking studies for very similar projects. So I was able to pull out some information that we've gathered over the years. We've counted multifamily developments in terms of what the peak parking demand is. We have some 60 data points. Most of them are in Connecticut, some are in suburban New York, in Westchester County area. But nonetheless, we have about 60 or some odd data points. What we found is that if we break it down by size of units, 1-bedroom units generate parking at somewhere around 1.2, the actual number is almost 1.204. So about 1.2 parking spaces for 1-bedroom units. two-bedroom units would generate at 1.49 based on the statistics we have. So you can see both of those are below the 1.5, and in essence, the 1.5 being proposed here with the 10% kicker, I call it, for the visitors, you're really looking at a 1.65 ratio here per unit. Now, one other thing that I could point to is if when we look at again, the Institute of Transportation Engineers also collects parking statistics for multi-family apartments. They don't break it out by number of bedrooms, but in general, for all of their multi-family housing stock that they have statistics for, they have an average of 1.3 spaces per unit. So there is, we do have our own database, and some of the institutional database would indicate that for suburban area, these the 1.65 or the 1.5 with the 10% for visitors would be certainly exceed the statistics that we have and the industry statistics by far. So that concludes what I have for my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. If you could go back to Ms. Harrigan to the sightline page there. Thanks. So about how many feet is the curb cut, the driveway, from the intersection?
The from the intersection, well, the 200 feet we showed in the queuing would be from stop bar to the beginning of the driveway. So from the middle of the intersection to the middle intersection is maybe 225 feet, I'd say.
Okay. So the sight line that we have goes through the intersection and sort of down the hill, right, to the past the on ramps to the Merritt and such.
Not all of the on ramps, no.
Not
the southbound on ramps.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So the 480 feet, I believe, gets you into the underpass area, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit on the east side of it.
And is there a different calculation for when you're that close to the intersection, or is it just the same if you're just on a regular road?
Well, it's typically it would be less, just because when you're taking the 85th percentile speed, what you're finding out is what those 15 highest ones are, and you're really cutting your sample in half when you have the signal. Because a lot of people from 200 feet away, they're starting from a dead stop. So they're clearly not getting up to 43 miles an hour and 200 feet. When we did the count, we did it on the other side of where our driveway would be, so that we would get more of the free flow speeds in both directions. So it would be, the requirement would, if we did a count just between where the driveway is and the ramps, we would probably have a slower speed and have a lower requirement.
So yeah, and that was another one of my questions. Aren't you? So you only calculated the percentile speed in one direction. You didn't.
No, we did in both directions. Both directions.
Did. Oh, okay. So
yeah,
we're only seeing support for one.
I'm sorry. I should have. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
No problem. So I guess we're only seeing the results from one direction in this analysis.
Well, you're not. It just is that the speeds in both directions were not substantially different, so we based it both on the 43 miles an hour. If we were to show this for the two different 85th percentile speeds, I don't have the data right in front of me, but it might have been, one of them was 42 or 41, the other one was 43. So we just took a more conservative approach here. But I could certainly, as the night goes on here, if you'd like, I could find the specifics in both directions. But this is for both directions. Sightlines are good in both directions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. And looking in the opposite direction to the left, we're going up the hill, and At what point does that road sort of flatten out? So you kind of looking up the hill into the sort of horizon.
I don't know specifically. I'd have to again look back at the topography, which I don't have in front of me, but it's near the end of the, it begins to curve away to after you get past the property line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is that where the sight line ends? It really ends is at the crest of the hill, and as the curve starts to go, the road starts to curve.
Yes, and even a little before that, it's just past the property line or the the full extent of the property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. But in your view, then, I remember that one of the earlier applications, there was some issue with sight lines, and the driveway was moved to, I believe, make it closer to the intersection. Yeah, that was a good one. Go back to the one with the bright green on it. Yeah, that one. So you can really see there where the where the entry is to the facility. And so I think that on one of the original plans, the driveway was further north on Blackrock Turnpike. I guess that wouldn't be north; it'd be kind of west. Northwest. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there was an issue with the sightline, so they moved the driveway down a little bit. Any issues with the opposing driveways for the hi-ho? I see it's directly across from an entry.
It is. It's directly across. And getting back to your sightline issue, I could see where if you moved it too far to the west, you start the area between the edge of road and the right of way is under control in terms of clearing. If you need to clear shrubs and things like that, once you get too far west, you lose control of that a little bit. It's on a private property. So you may have the sight line still, but you're relying on other people to keep their frontages cleared. So I think where the driveway is located, you're really in control of your own destiny here in maintaining clear sight lines in both directions.
Gotcha. And so then, thank you. And just getting back to the positioning of the driveway across from the entrance across the street, and then there's another curb cut a little bit closer to the intersection. Don't see any issues there with any of the ingress egress.
No, I think this driveway is well positioned, and in fact, it is the same location. I believe I didn't work on the medical office, but I think it's the same location.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Smith, for the record, I'm being reminded that indeed this is the same location for the driveway that was approved with the medical office use.
Very good.
This is Walt Phillips from the Huntington Company. If I may
Sure.
give my opinion.
Jump right in there.
That driveway has always been in that location for this proposal, for the previous medical building proposal, and for the proposal prior to that. So this driveway location has not changed. It's in the optimum spot along Blackrock Turnpike for this.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any other questions for Mr. Sullivan? I don't see any other commissioners on, I don't see your screens, so you'll need to speak up if you have anything you need to say.
Meg Francis,
Yes, Commissioner Francis.
I think it would be Mr. Geddes talk about the rubbish, the trash trucks, how they're gonna get up that driveway. Looking at the turning around and all that. I assume you're having the new trash compactors like you discussed in your last proposal.
Yeah, Commissioner, and I think we've had this discussion and other projects. Basically, this is, it's not your typical garbage truck or trash truck that will be picking up the cubed trash. Basically, the trash goes into the compactors, and there are small trucks that come out and lift it and put it into the back to remove. So there are no issues. And again, I think as part of what was submitted for the record, I think there you have a letter from All American Waste indicating that they view the plans and that they had no concerns with accessing the rooms, because basically these are rooms. They're sized to accommodate the compactor and also the recycles, and there's roll up door, and they wheel out the items, and they haul them away. So there's no issues that again, All American has taken a look and saw with what I had designed for this building.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Braun?
Where is the HVAC located? Like the bank of air conditioner? Are they separate units for each unit, or is it on top of the building?
No, actually, in this particular case, because the building backs up to the hill, there is ground area that the condensers can be located. Each unit will have its own heating and air conditioning system, and the condensers are the only items that are remote, and they will go behind the building on the ground. Again, they're not seen from anywhere because the hill's behind the building. So they will. The only thing that's going up on the roof is an observation deck on the west side, and that was decided that would be a feature, an amenity for the building.
When you say behind the building, this is kind of like an L-shaped building where it goes up Blackrock Turnpike, then it crosses to the left and goes up like the Merritt Parkway a short distance.
Right. So this would go on the inside of the L. If you look at it, it looks like an L, even though it's sort of circular. But it would go behind the L on the ground. There are areas that have been graded to allow for that.
So would that be required digging into the hill that's right there, or is it before you get to the hill?
No, basically the building is being tucked into the grade, so that, to give you an example, the front of the building, meaning the front portion of the L, along the Blackrock Turnpike and the ramp, is one elevation, and behind the L, the elevation is about 20 foot higher, because again, we're dealing with the topography. So the only thing I can assure you is that the condensers will not be seen from anywhere. They will be set on the ground behind the building, and there will be access for maintenance and so forth, but they will not be seen.
Behind building 1 or?
Well, again, as I stated before,
building 2?
There isn't really 1 or 2. It's one contiguous building that's shaped as an L. There is, in the middle of it, you do have the main entrance, but it's still one building.
And do you know the distance? When you say building, well, I'm calling building, according to your plans, building 2 is the one that runs parallel to Blackrock Turnpike, and then it kind of angles and loops around, and then building 1 is the part that goes sort of along the Merritt Parkway, right?
Yes.
When you said,
basically, I think but again, the building is not, it's just basically a contiguous building. We can say 1 and 2, but again, the front portion of it is in one grade, whereas the back is at a different grade.
So I'm still trying to envision or visualize it because it's hard to tell from the rendering. What we call building 2 is that portion of the building that goes across from the hi-ho along that's the one that's 6 stories tall, that's 63 feet
No,
high.
it's the reverse.
Oh,
Across from the hi-ho lot, you're at a higher grade. The road, pitches down as you head towards the Merritt.
so
Sorry.
it'd be nice if we could get a rendering for next time showing the elevation from different angles of the building, because I'm still trying to figure that out. So it's is the whole thing 6-story, building 1 and building 2?
No, I think if you look at the site grading plans that were prepared by.
Excuse me, John, Chris Smith, maybe if Emmeline, if you could pull up that rendering, I'm sorry, the colored site plan that the chair was thank you. That might help.
I think we're.
No, not that one. The one with the bright green that you had before, I think was a.
The site plan.
Yeah.
There we go.
That one there. So as you can see, there's a leg of the building that follows the ramp. And as it wraps around and heads north on Blackrock Turnpike, there's a differential in grade between the area of the on-ramp to the north side, of about 15 or close to 20 feet in grade. And basically what we did with the building was just basically follow the grade. That's why you have a 2-level parking deck following the on-ramp, whereas on the opposite side heading north, it's only 1-level parking.
Right.
When you see the green area behind the building, basically that's the area where the condensers would be going. Where you see the hatched portion up on top, that's basically at a higher elevation. That area is probably another 30 feet higher than the green area. So what I can do for the next hearing, or the continuance of this one, I can provide some drawings that would give you a better, very visual of that area, which would show you, the topography of it.
All right. Well, that would be very helpful. And now that we're looking at this, you can see why Commissioner Braun was describing it as building number 1 and building number 2, because
Yes.
that's how it's represented on the site plans and the drawings.
Yeah, no, I and again, I was trying to figure out how did this happen, but basically, it's the way that that Spat's office labeled it. I see, for me, I designed one building that followed the footprint of the previously approved medical building.
Sure.
So I didn't see
Very
these
good.
2 buildings.
No, that's very, very good. So I think Attorney Smith, I think that we're now moving on to your next witness. Is that right?
Our last witness, but I do have one quick question for Mr. Sullivan. I think everybody knows what it is, but Mr. Sullivan, in your professional opinion, will the proposed residential community result in an adverse impact to a substantial public interest in health, safety, or welfare?
No, it will not.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you. And with
So-
that, Mr. Chairman, we just have Mr. Joseph Verstig. We might be able to make your 10 o'clock curfew after all, or be very close to it.
I think, frankly,
up to you.
I'd prefer to adjourn. I mean, we have literally less than 2 minutes to go. Mr. Verstig, I know, has his presentation, and then, of course, there are questions that we have, to explore that. We're going to have to come back anyway. I would think that the best thing to do here would be to adjourn the meeting and continue the hearing at this point, unless you have some strong reason not to do that.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, all right, very good. Sorry we couldn't get to you, Mr. Versteeg, but we'll look forward to hearing from you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. Went, anything further?
No, sir.
Okay, and we're good for the continuation of this hearing at the next regularly scheduled meeting. Attorney Smith, works for you?
It's tight for myself, Mr. Chairman, but the 23rd at 6:30.
Right. That's the next regularly scheduled meeting. It's tight in what sense? In that for you, other commitments?
I may personally not be able to be here, but we'll have someone else and we can finish up and then hear from the public. I may be coming in later and I would apologize, but it's just something
Okay.
that was recently continued to that date.
Sure. No, I understood. And if something happens, we need to shift things, we can do that.
Thank you.
So, and recognizing also that this is a public hearing and we'll likely have some non-executive session right before we get to the public hearing. So you just let us know. Okay,
Thank you.
very good. Thank you, everyone. With that, I will continue this matter and I will adjourn the hearing. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, just for the record, with this remote, with the legal compliance, so it is continued to Tuesday, the 23rd, the next regularly scheduled meeting the meeting starts at 6:30.
Meeting starts at 6:30, right? We'll have executive session and any, administrative items, right? And before that, but yeah, that's when it will be scheduled.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of and Mr. Went, Ms. Harrigan. Thank you for the help.
Excellent. Thank you and good night, everyone.